By the VF Corporation, 80.5 kilometers today. We are in Avon for the first bank stage, and Danny Rowe is with me again. Danny, today's stage, 7 laps of a circuit with a big climb. After yesterday's stage, Chloe Dygert's going to have a work cut out to defend this jersey.
She definitely will, and I think she's going to really enjoy the first part of today's race. It's almost like a criterium followed by a huge mountain part of this race. It's something we don't actually see that often in racing alone, men's and women's, where you've got two such different styles of racing within one race. So I'm really excited to see what happens today.
Yesterday's stage, and we didn't get to see a lot of yesterday's stage, so big thanks to all of you, the viewers, who really, we had an hour's chat yesterday. I think we put the world to rights, but thanks to all of you for watching and throwing your questions at Danny for an hour yesterday, so we really appreciated that. But yesterday's stage, we had early breakaways. We had that Queen of the Mountains point as well, where we had that false summit, and then when we came back on air after the gravel section, Chloe Dygert was already away, and really a real strong victory for her.
Yeah, it was an amazing effort by Chloe Dygert. We didn't see exactly when she attacked, but to be away for so long, even when we got the pictures back, it was around 10 kilometres to go still to the finish line, and they'd obviously been over that gravel climb as well. So she had a great day yesterday. I think today might be a little bit too tough for her in terms of the climbing that we see that they've got coming up in the last part of this race, but I think she'll be happy with how yesterday went for sure.
Definitely. Well, let's have a look at the map and let's have a look at the profile of today's stage and what the riders have ahead of them. As we said, we've got a little criterium circuit in Avon. We're going to do 7 laps of that. And Danny, do you think at this point there's going to be a lot of sprinters that want to try and get away before we go out onto this technical lap at the end?
Yeah, for sure. That's what I definitely would have been thinking as a rider in this specific stage. I definitely want that buffer heading into this really long climb. On paper, it looks like it's about 6 miles long or 10 kilometres for those that work in K. So I think that would be a great scenario for the teams that don't have those pure climbers in the teams to try and get someone up the road to really have that buffer to get as further up the climb as they can.
And in terms of the climb itself, and we kind of touched on this a little bit yesterday, is the width of the roads. When we look at the Tour of Norway, which we went over earlier, really, really narrow, very sort of twisty, the way Marianne Vos got away in that one. But here, those big, wide roads that we've got in the USA, it makes for very, very different racing. Does it affect the way that you climb as well?
I'm not sure about the way that you climb, but it definitely makes it harder for those breakaway riders, especially if you're solo, because the riders behind have always got that carrot to chase. With the roads being so wide and generally really long and not twisty, there's nowhere to hide at all. So I think for the criterium style of the first 7 laps, that will be a key aim for a lot of the teams to try and get out of that sight on these smaller loops, and then to have a buffer on the climb. And then again on the climb, I think it will be a case of a bit of a waiting game to start with, to test out the legs of the other climbers. Yesterday we did a bit of climbing, but I don't think it was enough to really kind of see the form of the goats, which we call them in cycling today. So I think we'll have a battle out there.
Because we've got a few goats in there, as you said. One that we're always so excited about when we come into a race and we see her in action is Katie Hall, and she got herself into that breakaway yesterday. And again, there's so much pressure on her when you come into this one, isn't there? Just sort of the level of expectation.
Yeah, there's huge pressure, and probably, like you say, she is the rider to beat, the rider to watch. So she's going to be feeling that for sure. But I think this climb will really suit her. She loves the long climbs where she can get into her own rhythm as well. But like you were saying, there are a lot of climbers in this race. So unfortunately for Katie, she's going to have to take it on and hope that she's got the form to be able to get to the top first.
Looking at the field, though, and the way that group sort of formed yesterday. Brodie Chapman for Tibco Silicon Valley Bank. She had a great stage yesterday. Krista Dobell-Hickok as well, another great climber in that group. Omer Shapiro as well, a national champion of Israel. It was a really, really select group that came into the finish. But, you know, we've also got, you know, this whole sort of group of South American riders, Annette Barrera and Flavia Oliveira that's in there as well, that we're kind of seeing for the first time, and that's what's so great about this race. We're going to see a breakout of a lot of sort of South American riders that again are sort of putting themselves on the world stage.
Yeah, definitely, and it's a huge opportunity for these riders to be able to take on this racing and really get stuck in and use it as a real opportunity to learn how to race and their strengths as riders. And I think today's stage will teach them a lot, especially with the criterium style that you can see at the start of the race, and then the long climb as well, and something that looks like quite a technical descent. So many different elements of this race, and it's just, you know, the winner today is going to have to be able to position themselves at the criterium, climb, descend, and really do it all.
Now we're hearing that we've got pictures, so let's go over to the race action. Keep all of your chat coming, both on the comment section on GCN on YouTube and also on Facebook, and we'll do our best to sort of take some questions as we go through the stage as well. Remember, subscribe to GCN Racing and hit that bell icon so you know every time we go live, and also on Facebook, like, share and follow on there as well. So we will go over to live pictures, and it's Hagen's Berman Supermints that are on the attack here. So good to see them getting themselves off the front. Our solo leader here, the Hagen's Berman Supermint team, Leanne Ganza, is the rider that's off the front. So Leanne from Texas. So getting away, and they had a good stage yesterday with Whitney Allison coming in second. So you can see straight away here the attacks are coming in. Looks like the style of Tiff Cromwell grinding it out on the front there, I think, from the look of it.
Yeah, I think it was the Canyon SRAM team, or don't want anyone to get away at this stage of the race. It'd be good to see exactly where they are now in terms of the criterium laps that they're going to be on, but it looks like most of the peloton is together, and it's the Canyon SRAM team that don't want this to go anywhere.
And the DNA Pro Cycling colours getting themselves up there as well. In terms of this stage, if viewers that are new to cycling, and for climbers, this fast flat circuit, it couldn't be further from what a lightweight climber wants to do in terms of getting through this stage and getting to be able to battle it out on that climb.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's why today's stage is so special, because the climbers have got to get through this part of the race, and I think that's what they would have been quite concerned about coming into this criterium style of racing. Normally, the out-and-out climbers would never do any kind of racing like this, so it's really important for them that they're positioning themselves well, staying out of trouble, being able to follow those moves before they hit the bottom of this climb.
So we're just getting, they're not far away from rolling out. So you can see plenty of attacks coming in on this one. So good to see so many of the domestic teams as well getting themselves right in on the mix. So Hagen's Berman Supermint are very, very active. Lindsay Goldman is the attacker, just getting off the front here. And can anything get established? You can see one side of the road to the other, and that lasso effect, that's that ricochet effect that you get all the way down the peloton.
And it actually looks like quite a different crit style course here. These are still big, wide roads, so it makes it so hard for any riders to be able to get away and form a break. They're always in sight, so I don't think we're going to see much happening on a course like this before we hit the bottom of the climb.
Heather Fisher, that DNA rider, just getting away. And Arthur Gooseby over on our YouTube chat say it would be confusing if any riders get lapped on the 7-lap circuit before we head out on the climb. There is that kind of, it's a biggish circuit, but there's kind of a danger there, isn't there, in a way? There
is, and I think if that were to happen, that would mean race over for that rider. they would have to be pulled out at this stage. And that's actually Tanya Erath from the Canyon SRAM team now, the German rider on the front of the peloton. And she was actually one of the Zwift Academy winners. Not this year, but last year she won this Zwift Academy competition where anyone could enter the Zwift set workouts and races throughout a few-week kind of course, and they get whittled down to a group of riders who get invited onto the Canyon SRAM team. This is Tiffany Cromwell now coming up to join her on the front on their training camp in November, where a winner is given a 2-year contract with one of the biggest teams in the world of Canyon SRAM. So it's a huge opportunity for them.
Here's your stage profiles. As you can see, 2 intermediate sprints coming at 15.7 kilometers, 31.5 kilometers. There's your 7 laps, and then that climb. There you have it. The summit coming at 66.7 kilometers to go. That's 13.8 kilometers to go. And that's quite significant, isn't it? 13.8 to go on that descent, and it's a very, very technical descent as well, isn't it? From that point, that's a doable breakaway in towards the finish for a good descender.
Yes, I would definitely call it. The person over the top is going to win this bike race unless there are riders super, super close that they can then bridge it back on the descent. A lot of time can still be taken out on a descent, but looking at the profile of the stage, at the time they hit the bottom, it only looks like a few kilometers then back around onto this circuit to the finish. So I think there'll be fireworks all the way up this climb.
So again, Leanne Ganzer having another dig here for Hagen's Berman Supermint. So this team really trying to get away. This is always, again, when you come on to the stage early on, and a few of you asking how many kilometers to go. We're on the first lap here of our circuit, so we'll go through the finish line for the first time with 72.6 to go. We're just trying to follow through here on the course. So 80.5 kilometers, 7 laps to go is 72.6 to go, and then 5 after that we'll have the intermediate sprint at 64.8 to go. So we'll go through that point. So we'll do our best until they get the kilometers and miles at the top for us. We'll hopefully get that up pretty soon. So thank you, Tommy Ellis. We're asking, is Canyon SRAM in the race? Yes, they are, and they're good to see them here. They've got a split program. They're over in Norway as well at the moment, and
someone's asked what they think about the World Championships predictions. I was actually talking about this yesterday when we had a little bit of a Q&A session when our pictures dropped out, and obviously being a British rider, I would love Lizzie Deignan to win. I know that it's probably her biggest target of her whole cycling career. She's from Yorkshire, where the World Championships are being held. However, looking at the season that Marianne Vos is having, I don't think anyone is going to be able to beat her on her day. She's had such an incredible season, and looking at the course for Yorkshire, I think it suits her down to the ground, so she would be my pick.
So good to see. Again, they're really digging in here on this, just trying to get away. We see this, don't we, at the beginning of a race? A rider repeatedly trying to get away. So sometimes you come into a stage and you're super motivated to try and get off the front. Hence why a lot of the time you'll see the same rider a lot of the time going again and again and again until you get to that point. There we've got our kilometers to go, 76.3 to go. You get to that point where you finally get away.
Yeah, and it really is relentless, especially when you go into a race with that being your game plan. You'll try and try again, and sometimes it just won't stick, but it's great to see how attackive and aggressive this race has started out to be, especially for the Hagen Berman's team. They are obviously in this to get a breakaway before this climb, potentially not many pure climbers in their team, so that's obviously the game plan for today. But normally with attacks, it's not the first one that sticks. It's probably the third, fourth, fifth, when the peloton are a little bit sick of chasing and almost happy with then a composition that they can control. That's when it can go. So I'm sure this is just going to be relentless for the first few kilometres at least.
Good to see Rachel Langdon at the front there in the VF Corporation badass jersey. and I do apologise for my dreadful English accent in saying badass, but that's the black jersey there. Rachel Langdon of Fearless Femme getting away yesterday. She picked up that black jersey. We've got the Audi most inspirational rider yesterday was Lindsay Goldman. Just to bring you up to speed with our other competitions and our classifications. So going into today's stage, Chloe Dygert leading Whitney Allison by 48 seconds. Brody Chapman is there in third at 50 seconds. Marcello Prieto is at 54. Lauren Stevens in fifth. Krista Dobell-Hickok in sixth. Flavia Oliveira is seventh. Justine Barrow in eighth. Katie Hall in ninth. And Anna Pereira is in 10th position. Early sprints coming in the race with 64.8 kilometers to go, and just 15.7 covered. It's an early sprint, isn't it? Hence why it could be that they're not letting anyone get away here. They want to go through as a bunch and take back some bonus seconds if they can.
Yeah, a lot of these teams will be going for this sprint competition, so that's why it's going to be majorly controlled, having the sprint at only 9.8 miles or 15.7 kilometres into the race. And it's Lex Aubrey here on the front for the Tibco team, who's just controlling it for her sprinter coming into the first sprint of the day.
So you can see this is a good shot now of the finish. We are in Avon today, so thanks for your company. It's our second race of the day here on GCN Racing. So we're in Avon. So the stage today, 80.5 kilometres. It's again little attacks going through here. So that's the first lap down, and the clock is ticking.
And that is the moment to attack. When you're coming out of a corner, that is when you can get a gap. And this is the more technical part of the crit circuit. So that was a great move there.
So again, the DNA team. So some of the smaller American domestic teams. Danny and I just little opportunity. We're seeing a lot of riders on the US domestic circuit for the first time. So bear with us while we get to know them as well. And but it's great to see so many of these teams. They're going up against the likes of Canyon SRAM, Kogas, B Pink, not phased in the slightest, which is what you would expect. This is their opportunity. This is your Giro Rosa in a way, isn't it? These are the big opportunities to put your team at the front, put the jersey out there, and let everyone know who you are.
Yeah, exactly. And it's great that you're seeing the smaller teams really take these races on. We saw it yesterday as well, and I think it's their races to win and the bigger teams' races to lose. They've got no pressure, and they can really just race with their hearts and hopefully learn a lot along the way as well.
Good attack there. Heather Fisher just dragged back there. And if you look, keep an eye on the Rally UHC team. They're now in the blue jerseys for this race. So they race around the world in those familiar orange jerseys. So they are in blue for this one. So reminiscent of the blue train last year. Leah Torvason, just getting a little bit distance at the moment. And again, for some riders, this is full gas from the gun, and already this is what you don't want to happen, is it? At this point, to already be starting to just get gapped on the opening fast circuits.
No, definitely not. And Leah Thorvalson was actually another Zwift Academy winner, and she had 2 years on the Canyon SRAM team, and now she's gone back to an America to race. And she is a climber, so she is going to struggle with criterium racing. I know she finds it really hard to position herself. She's not very confident in the bunch, and this is what I was talking about earlier in terms of you have to be able to get around this crit style of racing before you hit the climb. So I really hope she can get herself back into this peloton, because that could be day or even race over if she ends up getting lapped.
Again, next little moves going off the front. These riders at the back just trying to stay with it. You've got to try and keep as tight as possible into these corners. Lisa Rocchetto now is the rider that's attacking for Hagensberm and Supermint. And Lisa, Ironman triathlete as well. And another Colorado native, apparently. I think Lisa was born here in Colorado, now lives out in California. And this Lux team as well. Very, very animated yesterday were the Lux team.
And it's Tanya Irath again from the Canyon SRAM team now in 3rd position. She's obviously got that job for the day to not let anything go up the road. And if it does go up the road, for her to be well and truly in this move. So I'm sure the Canyon SRAM team have got their sights set on a really good result for this race today and for the overall as well.
So a few riders again, that's one of the Fearless Femme riders just trying to stay on the back of the group. So you can see there's Oma Shapira in that white jersey with the blue stripes, the national champion of Israel. She'll be wanting to get kept as close as she can to the front of this one. And again, it's the big moves going in at the front. So Hagens, Berman, Superman, definitely the team of the start of this one. They are just throwing everything that they can at this stage. So this looks, I think this is Lindsay Goldman that's getting off the front here. So Lindsay Goldman just being marshalled there as well. The DNA Pro Cycling team getting themselves up there as well.
I think being a rider myself, there would be a time where you say, okay, on this circuit, for whatever reason, nothing is getting away, so we need to look at our plan B. There's no point in relentlessly attacking after attack. If the course doesn't really lend itself to it, there's not really many places to hide along the way, and then it might be a case of, okay, let's set our climber up, make sure she's at the bottom of the climb at the front, and hope she can make it, because otherwise you're almost expending so much energy for no reason, when if you're in 4th, 5th, 6th, you know, up to, I guess, halfway down the peloton, you're just tapping away, and these riders are almost killing themselves at the front. And with it being a stage race as well, that's even more crucial, because you don't want to be expending energy for day 3 and day 4, where you could be able to do something then.
So again, it's early days in this one in terms of trying to get away. Lisa Racketto again. Here's the rider going off the front for Hagens, Berman, Supermint. So obviously the team manager this morning just said, make sure we've got the rider up there, get into that breakaway. And this is the first decent gap that we've seen in this one. I think Lisa would hope that someone would come across to her when you're in this position as well, Danny, when you after all of those attacks and you're finally the rider that gets away, and you look back and no one's come with you and you're there on your own. Does it go through your head that you're like, seriously, everyone?
Yeah, for sure. This is a real death move now, to be out there on your own on roads like this. You know, you're just almost hanging yourself out there to dry, unless someone can just pip across, 1 or 2 riders, catch the group by surprise, come from the back and be able to get across to her and help her out. But you know, if no one does, they're just letting her dangle out there and kill herself, unfortunately. So
it's can Lisa Racketto build enough of an advantage now to get through the criterium stage of this opening stage here in Avon, and then try and get on towards that climb. But as this stage goes on, we would expect the US national team trying to lead this out and bring it all back together and lead Katie Hall into the bottom of that climb. We'll see Canyon SRAM doing the same for Oma Shapira. They would try to bring all of those riders through. Potentially as well, Kogas could be looking to try and do something for Amber Neben. You never know. So yeah, it's getting away on this one and leading into the bottom of that climb is going to be a big battle. Yeah, really important. It'll be interesting to see how wide the road is going into the climb, because with it being such a long climb, you might not see such a battle to get in to the bottom. You don't want to be expending energy fighting to get really to the front when it's a 10-kilometre or 6-mile climb, which will soon sort itself out between the climbers and the non-climbers. And I think you're going to see it splitting up straight away from the bottom. Those climbers will want to put time into the likes of Chloe Dygert. They won't want her to be hanging on for long. So I think we will see fireworks from the bottom of that really massive climb, which is what it looks like on the profile. If you're just joining us, welcome aboard stage 2 of the Colorado Classic, 80.5 kilometers. We have the 7 laps around Avon, and then we have the big climb that we head out over Bachelor Gulch. What a great name that is. That is a good name. That's a good name for a climb. You can see the get up over the top of that climb, Tibco Silicon Valley Bank, the team on the front. Again, these wide roads, the peloton. That was Emma White there, I think, who we saw from the rally team.
She is having a good season. She was second in the second stage of the Tour of Scotland, so she hasn't been back over to the US for long. And I think that would have quite a bearing actually on the riders. I know when I rode Tour of California, it definitely favoured the Americans who didn't have to get used to any sort of altitude. We started in Lake Tahoe, absolutely beautiful, I must say. But again, it was quite tough to only have a couple of days before the race to get used to the difference in altitude and also time difference with sleep in, jet lag and things like that. So that will also have to be a factor considered when we're talking about these riders going for the general classification.
It's not because it's jet lag's that issue, isn't it, as an elite athlete, because sometimes you don't always have that luxury. Maybe before you went to the Olympics or something like that, you'd get there a month before potentially to acclimatise, but when you're going through the pro circuit like this, you just don't have that luxury, do you?
No, not at all. And we were talking about it yesterday in terms of how much racing there is now on the calendar, and the women do a lot of these race days. With smaller teams, it means that a lot of the riders will have over 50 days of racing in a season, and like you were saying, it means you can't come out to races a month in advance because you'll be racing probably a week before. They're racing most weekends or most weeks, so yeah, it definitely will have an effect on the riders if they've been able to travel to a different time zone earlier in advance to get used to it or get rid of any jet lag that they may have.
Heading back in towards the sprint this time. So remember, these intermediate sprints, bonus seconds on the line. So again, we're seeing Rachel Langdon in that black jersey moving up. So the British rider for that Fearless Femme team just moving up. Now we see the colours of Rally Pro Cycling in those blue jerseys moving through towards the front, lining up through these corners. We saw that the previous lap for the sprint. That's a right-hand turn in towards the finish. So can anyone then now line up for these bonus seconds? So so highly fought after. They've got such a gap to try and pull back to Chloe Dygert. And in this situation, every second counts when it comes down to the general classification. So Rachel Langdon again just trying to move up here. It's the Canyon SRAM team that are leading out in this one. So lining up through the corners, they'll see that line ahead of them. Now the battle starts for those bonus seconds. And a good throw to the line there.
This is where it becomes really dangerous for these riders at the back. You can see just how strung out it is, and this is normally where any counter-attacks happen. So even if you're not going for the sprint, it's super important to be up there near the front so you don't get caught behind and having to chase after such a high-speed sprint.
I think it was Lindsay Goldman that took that sprint that time. We'll get confirmation of that result.
You can see just how far back on the road these riders are now, and after these corners, if any gaps develop with riders not being so confident to follow a real wheel around the corner, that's when you're having to expend so much energy to just get back into the front and the forefront of this bike race.
Is this Heather Fisher going clear again for DNA? Just getting off the front, so this familiar jersey that we're starting to see, just clipping off the front.
This is a perfect time to attack when everyone's legs are hurting. Actually, it's not when you're at your freshest that you should attack, it's when you're almost at your least fresh. When you're hurting so much, chances are everyone else is hurting just the same. And that is the perfect time to go because no one actually wants to hurt themselves that much and follow. So this is a fantastic move from Heather Fisher from the DNA Pro Cycling team.
So Heather Fisher, that's a teammate of Abby Mickey at the, I think that's the University of Boulder. And for Heather Fisher, I must say I do like the DNA jersey. It's a very cool one, actually.
Snazzy, isn't it?
It is very cool. Thanks for all your highs and comments over on our GCN Racing chat over on YouTube as Heather Fisher tries to get away after that sprint. Great time to go. A few of you asking why it's not on free TV. The internet's the future. And welcome to GCN Racing. This is our second broadcast of the day, our second live action with the Ladies Tour of Norway a little bit earlier on. A few of you asking as well, is this available to watch later? Yes, it is. As you'll see, all our live racing videos are all available to watch afterwards, so you'll be able to go back and watch those. The quick mix just asking about the Tour de l'Avenir highlights. If you check out the GCN Racing news show, which comes out every Monday, so if you don't see highlights immediately of races here on GCN Racing, check out the GCN Racing news show with myself, with Dan. We take it in turns to present that one, but we try and pull in things like Tour de l'Avenir and all of the other races into that one, so you can check out that on the GCN channel as well. So yeah, check in on that. The Tour de l'Avenir, it's been a great race so far. Arthur Galsby loving Danny's input as well, and the addition of Danny. 2020 Lizzie Dignan's retirement year that they're saying as well. Eric Chiampa checking in his old hometown, missing the high country, so a hometown rider. So thanks for all of you for checking in, and also on Facebook as well. Remember, let us know where you're watching us from around the world.
And this is a super impressive attack here from Heather Fisher. She's had a look around a couple of times, but unfortunately she's now on this big road with no corners, and this is where it becomes really hard for a solo rider to be able to stay away. But you can see she's almost halfway down the block at the back of her cassette now in the biggest chain ring. She looks like she's actually riding oval chain rings, which some riders are using now. But this is a great move here from the rider.
Have you tried the oval chain rings? Do they make a big difference?
I haven't personally tried them, and I don't think there's much in it, to be honest. That's why it didn't really become super popular. Now we're seeing a few riders trying to bridge over to Heather and hopefully be able to help her out in this first significant break.
And again, right on the drops is Heather Fisher, and won a stage of the Tour of the Gila back in 2016. And the Tour of the Gila again this year, didn't finish at the Winston-Salem Classic earlier on in the year as well. Now we're getting a bit of company now, just getting up, just coming straight past her is Ana Hernandez. So Hernandez and Heather Fisher just roaring at that. That's how you come across a gap though, isn't it?
That was perfect. That was really impressive. And she's saying, come on Heather, get on my wheel, I'm going to help you out for a bit.
So two riders, 15 seconds is your time gap. So these two riders clipping off the front. Ana Hernandez from Durango Specialized, a little flick of the elbow here. And Heather will be looking at this one going, could be quite gassed from being off the front for a while. It's when you get up there and you're looking for your breakaway companion to work straight away while Heather's trying to just get a little bit of breath back.
She's pulling her elbow out as if to say, come through, but she's been away already for a good few kilometers, so I don't think she can expect her to help much yet. What she should do is try and keep this gap going, let Heather have a bit of a breather so they can work together, rather than doing what she's doing now, where she's using all of her energy that she's got because she's only just attacked, and she's actually leaving Heather behind, and she's going to then be solo and Heather will be in no man's land. So I think that's something she might take forward, hopefully going on to other bike races in the future if she does end up solo then on her own.
A little bit of inexperience sometimes when you get into that position.
Yeah, exactly, and a lot of riders never found themselves in this position before, so she's obviously loving the fact that she's got a break from the peloton behind, and she wants to give it her all. And it looks like Heather's now been brought back and she's about to be brought back as well, but really good effort.
So thanks to all of you for saying hi. Rob Simon checking in to the Colorado Classic. Thanks for joining us. Andrea Koritsky watching from Syracuse in New York. So thank you all of you for joining us. We'll do our best to take your chat. So two riders up the road, but unfortunately Ana Hernandez going past from Durango Specialized. Just going past Heather Fisher after a great move, and now the reaction comes from the group behind it. Amber Neben, the rider on the front here for Kogas.
It's impressive to see Amber Neben on the front of this part of the race. I think she'll be super impressive on the climb. She's won the World Time Trial Championships twice before in her career, and at the age of 44, she's still such a super impressive rider. Someone's asked who we are, the presenters. Myself, Danny Rowe, formerly Danny King as a rider. I've stopped racing now. I stopped racing at the World Championships in September last year.
After a fairly successful career, big up your bad self. Come on, Olympic champion in the team pursuit. I'll big you up
okay,
instead,
you can
shall
big me
I?
up. I don't
so
really
Olympic
like
champion,
doing that.
world champion. I know you don't like doing that, but that's what the experience that we have alongside us here at GCN Racing. I'm Martin McDonald. I'm a commentator, been around a while, done a few bike races in my time, used to be a sport director as well, had my own team for a few years, and also was very lucky to work in women's pro cycling as a director sportive as well.
A fantastic commentator, I must say. I can big you up now.
Ah, thanks, mate. Great aerial shot here of our peloton. So we've gone through our first intermediate sprint of the day. And we're heading on to the second one that will come with 31.5 kilometers covered, 49 kilometers to go. So you'll see as well in that top corner they'll go from kilometers as well to miles. So it flicks backwards and forwards because cycling traditionally in kilometers, and that is in kilometers. And here in the US, of course, we work in miles as well. So we're giving you both of those. So again, a little group just trying to get off the front here. So again, just as we go around, so it's 7 laps of this circuit, and then we go up the big climb. So just one big climb and one big opportunity. When you look at the climbers and the way they rode yesterday, for Chloe Dygert, she's got to be that sort of time trial climber, hasn't she? She's going to be a very different rider to the likes of Katie Hall, who's just going to, she has that ability that it's so different as a climber, isn't it? Those little short, sharp accelerations that someone like Chloe Dygert can't follow, but if she on such a long climb as a time trialist, she can just grind it out and find her way back to the summit.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on there. For this kind of climb, Chloe Dygert cannot try and follow these goats as they are, these pure climbers, because she will go into the red too soon. But what she can do is use her time trial expertise to be able to really get into that high threshold that we know she can hold, being a super fit time trialist or track rider, and hope that she will be able to follow, but over a kind of, I guess, the whole climb, so she can grind her way back if they do go full gas from the bottom. And we see the likes of Chris Froome and Geraint Thomas do this in the men's racing. They let the riders go up the road, and then they'll stay at their own rhythm, their own threshold powers. A lot of the riders will be using power meters in a race like today, and they actually end up clawing these pure climbers back, who ride the climb in a very different way, being very intermittent, stop, start, sprint, hold back, sprint, hold back. And actually, by just grinding it out, you're using a different physiological system within your body, and it's just as you can get up the climb just as fast, but in a totally different way. So hopefully for Chloe Dygert, she'll be able to time trial her way up this climb. We haven't seen the severity of the gradient, so that will be a big factor of the climb as well, and whether the kind of time trial riders, the bigger riders, will be able to match the smaller climbers where power to weight really comes into it.
So just pushing through here towards the this circuit this time. So just give you an update on your jerseys and what you're watching out for. So the leader, the Gates Corporation leader's jersey here in Colorado, is a yellow jersey. The Queen of the Mountains is that blue jersey with the green on the cuffs of the jersey and around the bottom of the jersey. The sprint leader is the orange jersey, which is the sprint leader's jersey. So going through this time, sprinting it out there, takes that intermediate sprint this time. So just going through, we're waiting for the confirmation graphics of our sprints as they cross the line there, and straight after that that sprint there, the attacks come. It was Erica Clevenger that's gone through. It looks like took that one. And, local Colorado rider, I think, from.
Yeah. And she actually attacked from the front of the group, which I wouldn't do, because it means that riders can get straight on the back of your wheel. You're not catching riders out by surprise, and we saw there she had a good turn of speed, but riders could get straight into her slipstream. So unfortunately that that didn't become a significant break at all. But here, riders are going to have to be attentive. We saw the last time through the intermediate sprint was where the first significant move of the day came from, when riders are on their knees. And these riders at the back have really got so much ground to make up, and they're having to try so much harder than these riders. Just Marshall in the front, ticking along. You're seeing they're not actually riding that hard, whereas the riders at the back are still going full gas to try and get back and be able to recover them before these attacks start coming thick and fast. They're not having this opportunity of these small lulls because they're constantly fighting to be in this bike race.
So Lisa Raketo again just off the front, and now B Pink jersey coming through, and again just taking the pressure off here. If you're just joining us, it's been pretty relentless this stage so far. Front wheel of Puncture.
That looks like Krista Riffel, the young German rider for the Canyon SRAM team. Looks like she has punctured in her front wheel of the bike, and the mechanic there, highly experienced mechanic, German mechanic, getting her back into the bunch as soon as possible. And that was a really quick wheel change there, so hopefully she'll still be in that convoy of cars that you can see behind. So every team will have a car behind them which will have their director sportif in, and actually here, looking at the pictures, she doesn't have a car to get onto the back of. A lot of the time riders can get themselves in the convoy to make them their way back into the peloton, but this is going to be really hard for Krista Riffel here to try and get back in, because being a criterium style of racing at the moment, it's flat, it's fast, it's furious, and for one rider to be able to match the team of different riders here on the front who keep attacking is going to be a really tough job to do. So I hope she does make it. I hate it when something like a crash or a puncture sends you out the back and it's not just down to your physical ability on the bike.
So again, while Krista's trying to get back in here, again the attacks coming thick and fast at the front of this one. No breakaways managing to get established on this flat, fast circuit. 7 laps of this one before we head out and up that big climb. We've got a lot of anticipation around that climb, and the B Pink team again being very vigilant in at the front of the peloton now.
So Bad Vegan, who was following us yesterday on our YouTube channel, so thanks for coming back, has asked me who is my pick for the win today, and I am going to go with, I am going to back Katie Hall. Looking at this climb, I think it really does suit her down to the ground, so I'm hoping she can pick up a win. She's been riding with her new team of Bowles Dolmans this year. She had a good race in the Giro where she was riding alongside Anna van der Breggen, so I'm hoping that she will be able to get a win today.
So looking at yesterday and looking at that group that came in towards the finish, so you're going with Katie Hall?
I am.
Okay.
Who are you going with?
I'm going with Lawrence Stevens today then, from Tibco Silicon Valley Bank. And then Krista Doble-Hickok will win from Raleigh. That's the thing. She's
a super climber. I raced with Krista a few years ago, and yes, super classy climber in her own right. And Peter Sledges has said Annemiek van Vleuten constantly pushes and takes tiny rests while climbing, and that's exactly what I was talking about earlier in terms of the pure climbers riding in a totally different way up these climbs to the time trial specialists that like to be able to hold a constant power and not go over and under their threshold, because it takes so much more out of the heavier riders to have to do that and keep accelerating from a slower speed.
Yeah, it's the sort of climbing, the way the climbers ride, it just snaps your legs after that, the way that they make their moves. A little group just getting clear here, and again it's the Mexican team that are just off the front here. Durango Specialized are the team that are just getting away. Jessica Parra is the rider here, Jessica Parra from Colombia, and again just closing that gap down again.
That's Tiffany Cromwell from the Canyon SRAM team, hot on her heels, and it's really impressive to see someone always present at the front of this bike race for Canyon SRAM. You should always have a teammate near the front to make sure that you're never missing these moves if you've always got a teammate there, then the other riders can just sit back and relax a bit and get ready for the next counter attack. And that really is what I love about bike racing. A lot of people don't realise how much of a team sport it actually is. Even though you've got individuals out there riding their bikes, it is very much a team sport and always a team performance when these riders are winning in all different scenarios, sprinters, climbers. It's always been set up by the teams.
Leanne Ganter on the front, and a good question as well from Heriberto Parra. What's the average watts, would you say, for riders? Very dependent on weight, though, isn't it? It's a good question. But
yeah, a really good question, and like you say, very, very dependent on their weight. But for example, we used to do an FTP test, a functional threshold power test. So a lot of riders will know what they can hold for around 20 minutes. And my best ever 20-minute power was 305 watts. And I was 60 kilos at the time. So work that maths out in terms of the watts per kilo. And that's what these riders will be able to hold on this climb.
So thanks all of you for all your inputs. Again, this group all together, this testing little attacks that we've had so far. Nothing really managing to get established so far in this stage. But it's not for the want of trying, is it? It seems as well, we've got the big wide roads that we've got here. It's just sort of not, again, totally flat. It's just not conducive at the moment. Plenty of riders probably, it's a subject that we touched on yesterday, plenty of riders probably wanting to give themselves some drift room and have a little bit of safety time going into that climb. That's what a lot of the riders are looking for that are trying to get away here.
Yeah, and unfortunately for the teams without a real climber in their team, they're going to have to just keep trying. But you will have a couple of riders that will be sitting within the peloton, just biding their time and saving their legs so they can use all their energy on the climb and hope they can stay with those GC contenders. But we are seeing a relentless race here in terms of the riders attacking after attacking after attacking to try and get that buffer on to the climb.
So this is a look back. I think this is a rear wheel puncture, and this was yesterday on the climb, and this was Emily Newsom. And again, we were sort of out of pictures at this point, and just getting caught there. The rear wheel puncture. Unfortunately, the mechanic staying in the road for that one as the bunch climbed past.
Well, this is great because we didn't get to see
No.
any of that yesterday. That was on the gravel section, so unfortunately.
Yeah, she was still away when we lost pictures, wasn't she? It's kind of, again, you weren't able to give you the full story really yesterday on what happened, because she was climbing super well. Chloe Dygert ended up taking. She's leading in the Queen of the Mountains classification. They're level on 8 points. So for Newsom of Tibco Silicon Valley, again, if you've got designs on the Queen of the Mountains classification, it's getting yourself up there on this climb. Just maybe, again, we can see her very close to the front. Maybe just trying something, getting away before that climb again, giving yourself, some time in the bag that if they catch you towards the top, you're still taking Queen of the Mountains points. Because again, on each stage, there's not a huge amount of points on offer, is there? If you want that jersey, then you're going to have to get up there on that climb.
No, there's not at all. So yeah, like you say, if that's what your aim is of the race, then you're going to have to go for it. And if you don't think you can, stay with the riders like your Katie Halls or your Kristas or your Lauren Stevens, and you're going to have to try and do something before you hit the bottom of this climb.
So there's your Queen of the Mountains leader in that blue and green jersey at the front. Just give you a bit of an idea on how things finished yesterday. So Chloe Dygert taking the stage. Whitney Allison of Hagen's Berman Supermint came in at 48 seconds, managed to open up 2 seconds on Brodie Chapman in towards the finish. So that's our general classification at the moment. So 48 seconds, 2 seconds behind her. The bonus seconds, of course, on offer there. Then came Marcella Prieto, Lauren Stevens, Crystal Doble Hiccup, Flavia Oliveira, Justine Barrow, was in there as well for Lux, Katie Hall, and then Annette Barrera, Ella Harris and Canyon Schramm up there with Oma Shapira. Then the group behind Ariadna Gutierrez, who was an attacker yesterday, came in at 1:39 in a group, 1 minute and 40 seconds down. So we had Hodziger, Zablinskaya, Patel, Emma Grant, and Jessica Chera, with Jennifer Valenti coming in the next group at 3:31. So quite a few riders within a minute and 40 seconds of that leader's jersey. You can see Rally UHC really putting the hammer down this time. So again, we've got bonus sprints as well as sprints for seconds. You see the little, if you're not in, they keep flashing up the preems. So they're trying to get people to text in as well in order for the preems that we have on offer. To the riders, plenty of cash prizes as well. They're trying to beat some records in this one. So yes, again, so from Shoair, looks like Erica Clevenger again just sweeping up that one. So going well here is the Shoair 2020 rider.
That was really impressive from the Shoair 2020 team there. You also saw Tiffany Cromwell trying to lead her teammate Tanya Erath out, who was third in the last intermediate sprint, but she was fourth there in that sprint.
I think I was wrong there calling that was Jennifer Valenti. I was just about to say it looked like the similar style. Apologies. So Jennifer Valenti takes that one. Again, great track rider, Jennifer Valenti from California. Apparently she's won $10,000 for that one.
Wow, that was worth sprinting for, wasn't it?
That's a good payday, isn't it?
Her teammates will be happy with that. But Jennifer Valenti is a super track rider. I used to race with her back in the day. Very much rivals, I have to say. But very much respect to all the rivals out there racing.
Plenty of staring matches across the velodrome lined up for the team pursuit. Again, our colours of DNA, Hagen's Berman, Supermint, just getting off the front here. So good moves again. So you'll have seen these riders off the front throughout this one so far. So the Hagen's Berman Supermint rider, I think this is Lindsay Goldman. Again, trying to get off the front. So three riders again, just after that big money sprint there. It's a good time to attack. You know, everyone sort of sits back, has a little bit of a breather, tries to get their breath back, but it's the perfect time to go.
Yeah, we've seen that throughout this race so far. That has been where the significant moves have been made, straight after that sprint when everyone's gassed. You've had your lead outs from other riders in the team. There's not that number of race leaders throughout the front of the peloton to be able to really chase these moves, and these riders would have been sitting about 10 back in the sprint, and they can really launch it and try and get away. And these three now have to really collaborate with each other if they want this to stay away. There can't be anyone who doesn't commit 100%, because these roads are so fast. They're open. They're going to come onto this long, straight, wide road in a minute where the peloton behind will be able to see them.
And they have there some of Jennifer Valenti's results. 3 UCI track cycling champion, world titles, Olympic medalist, 12 national titles as a junior as well. So first place on the stage 3 in 2018. And she really is a really super talented track rider. And Shoair 2020, so you can see the 2016 jersey there. So it moves on each 4 years, doesn't it, in terms of focusing on next year's Tokyo Olympics.
Yeah, I know. Kristen Armstrong is one of the key players in that team to offer so much experience and guidance to these young riders. I know she was coaching Chloe Dygert, who is one of the stars of the future to look to. But I think it'll be a big battle between the riders who ride in this team, who do a lot of the track racing for the USA national team when it comes to the next Olympic Games in 2020. I think it will be a tight one, probably between the British, as always. So again, the riders here, this is Lindsay Goldman from Hagen's Berman, and the rider there, 75, Erica Clevenger, the rider that we mentioned a little while ago. And then Hagen's Leanne Ganza is 81. And we've had a question that asks, how long and high is the major climb of today? So it's approximately 6 miles long, or 10 kilometers long, and it reaches a summit of nearly 9,500 feet, or nearly 3,000 meters of elevation, and they climb about 500 meters in total, and that's in meters over the duration of the climb. So it is a really significant climb, which will definitely decide today's stage, if not the overall GC for this whole stage race.
Yeah, we've got a very twisty descent that's after that climb as well. So going to be someone who can technically as well really put it down on the descent as well. The counter attacks now going in from that group behind. So Fearless Femme now, Holly Breck is the rider that's going off the front there. So Holly Breck from California, from Fearless Femme, making a move from right down the group as well. That just gave you a great demonstration there on where to make your move from. So again, Holly Breck, though, she's just started a bit of a reaction from that group behind. So Fearless Femme clearly instructed now to get away. 20 seconds is the gap from the 3 leaders. So Lindsay Goldman, the riders that are off the front, Erica Clevenger and Heather Fisher.
And that was the B Pink rider there, number 65, Sylvia Valeschi, who was hot on her heels to not let this rider go anywhere.
So good trio of riders that are off the front here. Just having a little look around at each other. So number 86 on the front here, Lindsay Goldman from Hagen's Berman Supermint. Again, Heather Fisher here for DNA Pro Cycling. Had a little go earlier on as well. Erica Clevenger, we've mentioned her quite a few times from Show Air 2020.
They're really working well together here. This is a really nice number of riders to be away, because everyone can really share the workload evenly. No one can really hide at the back, so no one's worried of people missing a turn or not giving it their all to really work together to hopefully stay away in the lead up to this climb.
Little question from Jeff Thompson. Are there any Canadians in the race? Yeah, we can run you through your Canadians that you got here. So Rally UHC have got a good complement of Canadians. Sarah Poidevin. Hope I'm saying that right. It has a look of French about it. Alison Beveridge in there as well in the Rally UHC team. We've got Emily Marcolini for Tibco Silicon Valley Bank, and Lex Albrecht is also in there, another Canadian rider that's in there. Caroline Poole from the Amy D Foundation with Cara Lilly, another Canadian rider, and Olivia Barril is in there as well for Fearless Femme. I think that's all our Canadians, and we've got Isabella Bertold as well in this one. I think that's all of our Canadians. There's your overall leader, Chloe Daiger, in that yellow jersey for Show Air 2020. Good move by Show Air 2020 here as well, tactically, to put Erica Clevenger into that breakaway group as well. So we'll come round next time. We've got 45 kilometres to go. And the next time we hit the finish line, it will be 3 to go of our finishing circuit. Then we will head out along the West Beaver Creek Boulevard, and then we will head up the Bachelor Gulch for the Colorado Tourism Queen of the Mountains points in that one.
Yeah, this is a perfect scenario here for Chloe Daiger, who we just saw in the pictures there, sitting nice and comfortably in the middle of the peloton in the yellow leader's jersey, that she's got a teammate in this move. And for any of the other 2 teams now that are in this move, Hagen Berman's and the DNA cycling team, their teammates will just be almost rubbing their hands together at the back, knowing that they don't have to chase. They could chase potential attackers that try and get across to this group, but they don't have to make any moves to chase this back. And it's up to these 3 riders now to stay in front as long as they can. So this is an ideal scenario for Chloe, who is currently our race leader out on the road.
If you, again, to explain to you, if you're new to cycling and watching cycling for the first time, we always apologise to you experts out there, but we do have here on GCN Racing, because we're on Facebook and YouTube, we have people that just happen across this, they're watching for the first time. And we are quite guilty in cycling sometimes, aren't we? That just assume that everyone knows what's happening, and it's really easy to work out. But putting Erica up here, on it, especially going into a climb, it just gives that team that opportunity, especially if Chloe needs someone to just put it, even if you've only got 500 meters in you, to tow your race leader. It just gives them that momentary little bit of rest, doesn't it? And gives them that opportunity to maybe take a breath. So this is why tactically sometimes the race leaders team will put someone in the breakaway.
Yeah, exactly. That was exactly like I was saying before. It really gives them a chance to sit back and know that they're really in control of this race. And that's what you want when you are wearing that leader's jersey. You don't want to have to be controlling the race, because the scenario that would happen if they weren't in this move would be that they would be the team that would be looked at to have to control this back. Having that race leader's jersey almost gives you that responsibility to have to take the race on and follow any of these moves and bring the break back.
So Erica here, just on the back of that breakaway group here for Show Air. So Hagens Berman, as we said yesterday, their motto, win a race a week, is the Hagens Berman's motto.
No pressure.
No pressure at all in that one, but it's good. It's a good objective to have as a team. And they're heading in towards the finish.
Another really good question, Mr. Grumpy, 53. Great name there. I hope you're not actually grumpy. That would be quite sad.
We hope you're enjoying our coverage.
We do. Seeing that this is Colorado, do you think that the riders are using a 28 or are they toughing it out with a 25? From what I see, their cog sets don't look that huge. If any of these riders are riding a 25, I will be flabbergasted, because looking at this climb, it looks like, I think I'd have a compact chain set on. I think it's so important to have, you know, a really wide variety of gear ratio with such a significant climb. And I think they would have to take this crit style into consideration when they're looking at their gear ratios, because this part of the race would be fast and furious where they will need the bigger gears. But the key part of this bike race will be on this 10-kilometer climb or 6-mile climb, so they will definitely need a bigger cassette than a 25 to really be able to ride efficiently. They would get up it, I'm sure, with a 25, but to be efficient and to be able to really race and be able to have a nice cadence that's not going to fill their legs with loads of lactic acid if they're only pedaling at 50-60 RPM, will be definitely worthwhile to have those bigger cassettes on the back.
It's when you get into that situation as a rider as well, and you turn up and you've got a climber like Katie Hall, or in the past like Emma Pooley or someone like that, and you turn up and you look and they've got like a 23, something like that, and they go, it's 23, it's climbing it. You know, so you look at it. Yeah. It must just roll your eyes sometimes, the climbers when they do that.
It does, but actually you're seeing a lot of the climbers now using the bigger cassettes on the back. Even the men's races in the Tour, they'll use bigger cassettes just so they can spin a bit more up the climb. It doesn't mean they're necessarily going any slower, but it just means that they can ride a lot higher to the most efficient cadence, which we can see is around 90 revs per minute, where you're using that real mixture of aerobic and anaerobic fitness. So if you ride at a lower cadence, you're using a lot more of your muscular system, so it has a real detrimental effect on your muscles and you get really sore legs, as opposed to a higher cadence which draws on your aerobic system, so you end up breathing a lot heavier, you've got a higher heart rate. So it's somewhere nicely in the middle where you're most efficient, and we see that that's at around 90 RPM or 90 revs per minute in terms of your leg speed, and that's what we're talking about when we're using the word cadence.
So you can see the peloton behind Show Air 2020, quite happy with this one. They're just a little shake of the head there, as they you can see B Pink are working hard on the front with Fearless Femme. Our race leader's jersey very much to the front of this one. They're quite happy to just let this one go. So the B Pink rider though, just clipping off the front here. They want to keep this one together. But our three breakaway riders get to see that they're establishing a gap, 30 seconds. It's the biggest gap that we've seen for a while, and the biggest gap that we've seen so far in the stage today.
This is a really great move from these three riders. They're working really well together. You can see now the rider from DNA cycling team just going through and taking her turn on the front. to allow the rider to be able to sit back and rest before doing another big turn. They'll be riding probably about 80% now, so they'll be keeping a little bit back, knowing they've got this big climb to come, but they will be giving it nearly everything they've got here on the front before getting onto the back. The rider just clicking up the gears to try and get a little bit more speed out of herself.
Heather Fisher again. Looking at Heather earlier, we saw her getting off the front. Anna Hernandez came up, going straight past. Again, Heather Fisher. So in the course of her career, she rode with the XG 2016 team. She'd a little bit with Matrix Fitness. She rode with Rally. She's ridden with Tibco, and that again that shows the experience of someone like Heather from DNA in terms of when Anna came past her, instead of really trying to put herself in a box and trying to chase her down, she just knocked off the speed, and you live to fight another day, and here she is in the breakaway.
Yeah, exactly, and that does come with experience, like we saw earlier with the rider who just sailed past the girl that she caught that was out there solo. With Heather Fisher, she's been out there for years. She knows how to race. She's been in these scenarios before, which means that she knows the best moves to make in terms of how she approaches these races and gets the best out of herself in a stage race scenario when she knows she's got multiple days coming up, and that might then suit her style of riding. So this is a perfect scenario for her now, being with these other two. They can really share the workload. They're holding this gap at 30 seconds, and I'm hoping they will make it into the bottom of this climb. They look super composed here now as well. They've really got their rhythm in check. Normally, when you get a group like this off the front, to start with, it's really hard, and they'll be at nearly max. But when they've developed now this gap, they can just roll through. It gives them a chance to be able to recover, and that is the best scenario.
So 30 seconds. This gap just holding nicely now. So when we come around next time, so we're 24 miles from the finish. So we will have two more times through the finish line, and then with 25.4 kilometers to go, that's where we head out on to the big circuits. There's Emma Edwards. So there's your race leader again. They're just focusing in on her. Looks super relaxed at the moment, does Chloe Diger. If you're just joining us today, this is stage 2 of the Colorado Classic here in Avon. That's our fearless femme rider just going off the front here. We've seen them working on the front. B Pink. I'm looking at the B Pink team, and just we'll have a little look back to the general classification in terms of B Pink, and their highest placed rider in the overall is, from what I can see, Chiara Perini for B Pink yesterday was the highest placed rider overall at 3 minutes and 51 seconds in the general classification. So I'm quite interested to see why they're, I know they're kind of, again, thinking, got to get in the break, and why they're, looking at this in terms of, not letting that breakaway go. If you're going to go, get across to the breakaway, but sort of the way it's being ridden at the moment, not letting that breakaway go. If you're going to get across, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. And you really do have to try and commit, like you say, and give it 100% if you do go, to not sprint for 5-10 seconds, look back, hesitate, because then that gives the riders behind a chance to get straight on your wheel. And like you say, the first rider from B Pink in the general classification is nearly 4 minutes down. However, looking at this climb, minutes can be taken from, throughout this peloton, and yesterday was significantly lower in terms of the severity of the climb. Overall, the amount of climbing throughout the day is about the same, but you can see most of this race is this criterium style, and it's just this one significant climb in the road towards the finish of the race. So I think you could see gaps of over 4 minutes. So it's not over for a team like B Pink, who did lose nearly 4 minutes in stage 1. I think today will be so significant and be the decider of the overall.
Abby Mickey there just talking into her radio with the rider that just got up to that little group as it swung off. So they intermediate jerseys, so seeing them up towards the front as well. So Alison is there as well. So 3 riders are leading trio now up to 40 seconds. So just though, again, those little attacks, it does help the breakaway in a way sometimes, doesn't it? Because you've got those big gaps, then the pressure just goes completely off the peloton. And you see that jump start gap here, 10 seconds.
It does, and that's why usually the best case scenario is one team take control and control it with 5 or 6 riders at the front of the peloton behind to really have a consistent speed for the peloton to try and catch this break quickly. What you're seeing here is no one team is really taking it on. You're seeing a number of different attacks, which, like you say, is actually nullifying the peloton behind because there's no significant pace behind.
So a little question here on YouTube from Eric Chiampa. Thanks, Eric. In terms of the bunch getting strung out on the climb, he's wondering, doesn't seem the draft will mean as much when the speed drops, but you still do get a draft when you're on the climb, don't you?
It all depends on how steep the climb is. You don't get much draft at all when it goes over about 4%. You get a draft a tiny percentage when you're sitting second, third, fourth wheel, but it all really does average itself out on a climb. So that's why you see a lot of the smaller riders being able to, you know, really ride away from the bigger riders if the percentage goes over that 3 or 4%. So you will see the race average drop in terms of the speed. They're averaging nearly 40 kilometers an hour now on this flat high-speed circuit of these 7 laps of the criterium style of racing with these big wide roads, not many corners. You've got the sprint competition that really keeps the speed high. The peloton trying to chase these 3 riders now who have 40 seconds. But when we hit the climb, the speed will significantly drop. But I can tell you now it will be fireworks of racing and it will be super exciting. So make sure you stay tuned and watch the rest of this 35.5 kilometers to go, or 22 miles of this bike race.
Our breakaway grid. So that gap after the little flurry of attacks went out to 40 seconds. You can see 89 riders taking the start today back in to the finish town. And again, this will give you the idea of the run-in towards the finish after our big lap. Looks like, again, Ana Hernandez just clipping off the front here. Just, again, those teams behind that have missed this one. Again, got to be a significant move. Once you get up to 40 seconds and up to a minute, that starts to become when you're trying to get across. So 30 seconds, that's doable in a big move. But once a move starts to go out to sort of 40 seconds and a minute, it starts to become a lot harder to get across to that breakaway.
Yeah, it is really hard, and these riders will become out of sight for this main peloton behind, which doesn't give that carrot to really be able to chase from behind and the want to really attack to try and get across, because they know it will be super hard with a significant gap that we're seeing here now. And I think it's a Canyon SRAM team that are going to have to take hold of this and ride as a unit behind, being, I guess, the favourite team, the biggest team coming from Europe, being one of the biggest teams on the UCI World Tour, to take hold of this and try and reduce this gap coming into the bottom of the climb.
So through the finish this time, so 2 laps to go for this one with 33.3 kilometers to go. That means 1 more criterium lap. When they come through with 25.4 kilometers to go, then we start the big lap. And we head out into the mountains, the Bachelor Gulch, Queen of the Mountains point. You can see the hills surrounding Avon here. There's 100 meters to go up towards the line. It's our Queen of the Mountains jersey sat there in second wheel, getting herself poised and ready, being very vigilant towards the front.
Yeah, like we were saying, this is a point in the race where they hit this technical section through the finish line that we've seen the peloton really stringing out and riders suffering, having to chase back on, and that's what you don't want. These riders are going to have to be trying so much harder than the front 10, 20 in this bike race to close the gaps when they do go round the corners. So we're coming into the feed. You can see riders trying to take their bottles now to get the liquid down them before they hit this climb, because they don't want to be carrying any excess weight up a climb that we're going to see today.
Good question here from the Bad Vegan. I'm loving that name. Bad Vegan over on YouTube. How much time would you say that the break would need to go all the way to the finish? It's got to be a significant amount of time, looking at how the minutes can just disappear when you start to climb.
Yeah, normally you say 1 minute per 10 kilometers of racing, but that would be on a more flatter terrain for sure. With this race, that kind of gap can be closed so quickly when you've got the likes of Katie Hall behind you who go up hills very, very fast. So I don't think we're going to see these three riders make it all the way to the finish here, but if it was a flat stage, they'd need about 1 minute per 10 kilometers to really have the chance to stay away.
So nice, beautiful tribute there to Paul Sherwin, the legend of commentating, one of my idols, who we sadly lost this year. So nice pictorial there to Paul Sherwin, who everyone misses. What a legend. He was the reason I got into commentating. Him and Phil Liggett were the voice of cycling as I was growing up. Looking again, coming back to the gap, when you get into the mountains, and we see it time and time again, don't we? Gaps of 4, 5, 6 minutes. When you get into the hills and you're trying to hold that gap, those are the sort of advantages that you would look for a breakaway to potentially have at the bottom of a climb to go all the way to the finish.
Yeah, 40 seconds unfortunately just isn't going to cut it when you're looking at these climbers. Like, I know we keep asking, talking about Katie Hall, but the speed that she can ride up these climbs is just phenomenal. So a gap of 40 seconds isn't going to be able to be held out for that long, especially as well because these riders are working so much harder than the likes of Katie Hall, who we've seen is just chilling out in the middle of this peloton. She's keeping herself safe. She's trying to save as much energy as she can because she knows that she's going to have a 20 to 30 minute effort now when she hits the bottom of this climb. So it'll be so different for these riders out front who have been expending all their energy to try and hold this gap. And you can see it's now coming down to 35 seconds. So unfortunately it's starting to come down already with the imminency of this climb coming up. The riders behind are going to get nervous and want to make sure they're positioning themselves well into the climb, and naturally that means that the speed in the peloton will increase.
Just a question from El Lopez over on YouTube. Is it a hilltop finish line? No, we go over the climb and then we come back down into Avon for the finish. The summit of the climb comes with 13.8 kilometers to go. It's a really significant climb that we have. So 13.8 kilometers to go and then back down and into Avon. Again, Danny, you said a little bit earlier that if someone goes over the summit of that climb in the lead in terms of holding it all the way into the finish, again, big, wide roads that we've got here, that's again, going to need a fairly significant amount of time when we go over the top to come down into the finish, looking at the way they've gone around this criterium circuit.
Yeah, it all depends on the gap they have over the top of the climb. If they have a significant gap, they should be able to hold it all the way. We can see that there's a really small distance from when they reach the bottom of the descent to the finish line. But like we've seen in this criterium style of these 7 laps, it's really hard to stay out there on your own solo. But I think what we will see are riders spread all over the road coming into the top of the climb to the descent. And then it'll be almost like a time trial scenario into the finish where riders will just be battling as hard as they can to either make up time on the leader or not try and be caught if they have got that significant gap then into the finish.
Our breakaway group, we just saw Chloe Dygert just starting to get brought back up towards the front and are going through. We'll go through next time and then we head out on to the big lap. So a lot of the anticipation in terms of the climb to come, and expect a huge amount of attacks. And for the team of Chloe Dygert, they got some work to do to ride this one and marshal the attacks that we expect from the climbers to come on this one. But a great move that this breakaway managed to get established. Hagens, Berman, Superman on the attack from the gun, as well as DNA Pro Cycling. We saw multiple attacks from Heather Fisher before she got into this move. So great to see them getting in there, finally getting their team out there in the lead. Kogas Metier just coming through in those in the red jerseys towards the front, and Swap It, those colours as well. The Swap It's Ajolico team in the red jerseys with the multi-colours down the arms of those. So Marcela Prieto is the rider again, the Mexican rider. Annette Barrera, the national champion, is in there as well. Marcela Prieto, great finish by Marcela yesterday, coming in 4th place. So that Swap It team, again, they've got a lot riding on this. She sits 4th overall at 54 seconds. She looked very good yesterday.
She did look really comfortable, and it's going to be a case of following this rider, number 1, Katie Hall, who's now coming to the front of this peloton as long as she can and try and make it all the way. Here you can see Katie Hall with the orange helmet getting to the front of this peloton. You can see the gaps actually come up now, and I think that's because a lot of the riders in this peloton are now worrying about this climb that they're about to face and making sure they're not giving too much now on the front, knowing how much this is going to hurt. We're having a lot of chats now on the YouTube channel asking about the average percentage for the climb, and it is around 8.5 kilometers at nearly 7%, so it is super significant and it's going to hurt.
So you can see the team cars now being able to, they're letting them go up towards the front of this one, so getting those gaps through. Hagen's Berman Supermint just managing the front of the peloton now in terms of this group. So good to see them up there. Whitney Allison, you can see in that orange jersey. Whitney, a great stage yesterday, jumped away in towards the finish, took 2nd on the stage, sits 2nd overall at 48 seconds for Hagen's Berman Supermint. So great for them to get a rider again into that breakaway group and just allow the team to bring Whitney Allison back up towards the front. And now we're seeing that gap go out to 55 seconds. And for that peloton behind, for the general classification riders, they could let this gap go out to 3-4 minutes, couldn't they, potentially? You know, in terms of they know they can bring that gap back on the climb.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be very worried about this. They are coming into the climb now. So this is a great situation for these 3 riders who will have a buffer. But the climb that we're going to see it's just so long that it will come down, and I think the GC riders now just need to get themselves towards the front of the peloton, have their last gels or energy bars, whatever their preference is in terms of their race nutrition, get their fluids on board so they can get rid of their bottles or any excess weight ready for this big battle that's going to happen in this climb.
So just keeping on here now, up to 1:05. So our breakaway group just pressing out the advantage here. So a little bit of a pat on the back there from Erica Clevenger from Show Air 2020. Your group, Lindsay Goldman, Erica Clevenger, and Heather Fisher. That's the makeup of the group. The Hagen's Berman car just moves up towards the front. And now we've got Newsom, the Queen of the Mountains leader, for Tipcoat Silicon Valley Bank. She gets herself up towards the front again. Emily Newson, so again that puncture yesterday, real disaster for her, in towards the finish. Our leading breakaway group. So that Hagen's Berman car now with the gap over 1 minute. They let the team cars go through. And for Silicon Valley Bank, they've got riders up there overall. Brody Chapman sitting there in 3rd overall at 50 seconds. So Brody Chapman from Tipcoat, Silicon Valley Bank, they're just all positioning each other in towards the finish line and then back out for this big loop.
That was the first time we've really seen a team get together with the majority of their riders really leading the way and leading this chase, with 4 of these Tipco riders now on the front. You can see Chloe Dygert sitting nicely behind them, profiting off their slipstream into the final time we hit this finish line before hitting the significant climb in the last lap of stage 2 of the Colorado Classic.
Good question. Good little question. It's something we touched on yesterday in our chat. Just asking, is in terms of the riders as we go through here, and we'll start to head out on to the big lap. In terms of riders that it's their full-time job, you know, and riders that are mixing this with work, it sometimes varies, doesn't it? And the teams that we've got in that leading group, potentially we see riders that, you know, they do mix a full-time job with their racing, and then they come into this and they're still able to compete at this sort of level. But that's the disparity that we've got to get to in the women's pro peloton.
Yeah, there's a huge difference between men's and women's professional bike racing, and I believe that the majority of this peloton will have part-time jobs. They won't be on a salary at all to be racing their bikes. In the European peloton, that won't be as significant, but still there's a big difference. So we were talking about this yesterday. In the men's professional peloton, there's a minimum salary of 40,000 euros, and in the women's there's no minimum wage, and most of them will be holding part-time jobs as well to support their cycling careers. So it's something that has definitely changed and is getting better in terms of the difference in the salary of men's and women's, but we've still got a long way to go, and I think that will come with the coverage. And this is just great that we are really leading the way in getting more women's cycling on the TV, on the internet, to really showcase how exciting it is, and hope that that will mean that more sponsors will come on board, and it will just have a snowball effect. It will enable the riders to be paid. It will really increase the strength and depth of the teams. So hopefully that answered your question.
So if you're out there and you're a company director or you work for a company, this is where it's at, people. Women's pro cycling, get involved. You'll get a massive return on your investment in terms of getting up the speed at the side. So some of you were wondering what speed they were doing. So a little flash of the speed camera at the side there. Just going through the feed, and again on the flat here. So riders just trying to get an opportunity to have a feed, and it looks like we've had a bit of a crash in the feed, and one rider just down at the side there. So we hope she's okay. Teammates just going back to check.
I love seeing that actually in the racing, when a rider looks like they are quite significantly hurt. The riders aren't just jumping back onto their bikes, they're checking that their teammates are okay. It might be quite some time before the race ambulance or anyone can come to help them. So that was really nice to see other riders just checking before they get back on their bike and start the chase that rider was okay to carry on.
Yeah, and we always wait till any communiques come out and any news that we get on that. But our breakaway group holding 1 minute and 5 seconds. If you're just joining our coverage today, welcome. Your breakaway group is Lindsay Goldman of Hagen's Berman Supermint, Erica Clemenger from Show Air 2020, and Heather Fisher from DNA. Some of the most active riders throughout the stage today. The crashes in the feed zone there, again, it's very difficult sometimes on a flat, fast circuit when it's hot. The riders need the bottles. It's very difficult sometimes to get the feeds done on flat roads, isn't it?
It's really hard. Like you say, it's normally at such a high pace that it can become really dangerous. They would be going at 40 to 50 kilometers an hour through that section, and there's so many different riders, and normally only one soigneur or helper that's giving these riders the bottles out on the road to try and feed 4, 5, 6 riders of their team. And when the teammates are riding so closely together, like the Tibco team, it makes for almost impossible feeding, and that's unfortunately when crashes can happen if everyone is fighting to get their bottles. And
we're starting to back up to the breakaway, starting to see a few little attacks now from our breakaway group, which is unusual. Emily Newson, though, job done by her. Lex Albrecht takes over on the front here for Tibco Silicon Valley Bank. Brody Chapman is the rider there behind, wearing number 41, and Brody Chapman, their team leader, as we said, going into today's stage, sitting 3rd overall at 50 seconds. And for them, that again sort of shouts that Brody Chapman is looking to try and something on this climb. Back at the head of the race, though, it's Lindsay Goldman, move there. So this breakaway group, you can see they've been out there for quite a while. 22.9 kilometers to go. So heading round here in terms of the circuit, so they head out onto the I6 and then onto the village road, and then that will take them up to the the into the climb. So there you go, the Beaver Creek bridge just going across the road. And it looks like the road's starting to go up.
It is. It looks like it's already climbing here from the bottom of Avon, where they have been doing these laps. So this is the bottom of this climb, and I think you're going to see this gap come down significantly now, as you see the Tibco team doing an absolutely superb job for their climber in the race to get her really well positioned into the bottom of this climb. What you don't want is to be caught out near the back, and you've already got to chase up to the leaders before they start this big battle on the climb. If they can be positioned well near the front, they've already got one up, one in hand to battle it out. And you can see the work that these riders have put in, being away for so long, that they're gassed already at the bottom. And you can see the peloton behind. They're going to swallow these riders up so quickly, even after having over a minute lead.
So now the attacks come on the climb. Looks like Brodie Chapman already. So Tibco, Silicon Valley Bank led out. Erica Clevenger just talking into her radio just to see where the team are. And this would have been the team plan. Send Erica up the road. Then she's at the front of the climb to be, you see there, speciality all-rounder. Just looking back now, she's a teammate of Chloe Dygert. So just again, gives that other rider, as we said a little bit earlier on, another card to play in the group, and in being able to work for the team leader. We're on to the climb here, and remember the summit of this, and then that technical run-in towards the finish. Maritza Gans von Bergen over on Facebook, thanks for your comments. Glad you're all enjoying our coverage here on GCN Racing. Someone just saying as well, bad vegan. Wow, Danny totally called it. That's why you're here, isn't it? Brodie Chapman, Katie Hall is the rider. So just getting up here. So Brodie Chapman, right, it's a gutsy move here by Chapman to be making the moves already on this one.
Chloe Dygert in the yellow jersey there, just hanging on to this front group that's starting to form at the bottom of this climb. The two Canyon SRAM riders look like one to be Ella Harris, the young rider who won the Zwift Academy competition to gain her place into this team for a 2-year contract. And the other rider is Tiffany Cromwell, the Australian, the super domestique of the Canyon SRAM team, who's doing a great job. She's not a climber, but for now she's hanging on to this front group that have formed really quickly already at the bottom of this climb.
So Sarah Poitevin is also in there. So Brodie Chapman just grinding out the pace on the front. Flavia Oliveira there for Fearless Femme, just sat behind Katie Hall. Katie Hall just rolling out her shoulders, flexing, almost flexing the muscles there. Katie Hall just looking down at the computer as well, just to keep an eye on the power meter. Katie Hall riding in the colours of the US national team.
It's really important to be super relaxed when you're riding up these climbs. I heard a really nice analogy about playing the piano. So you've got your hands on the bars, but you're able to kind of wiggle your fingers to keep, you know, that tension out of the upper body. You want all the power to come from your hips and be able to be generated through your legs on such a long climb like this. And you can see how Katie Hall looks so composed, and she's just got to follow here up to the top into the last few kilometers, where I know she will launch her attack to try and put time into the other GC contenders.
Whitney Allison in this orange jersey. So Whitney Allison through to the front here. This is the First Bank Sprint Leaders jersey. That's Whitney Allison for Hagens Berman Supermint. They've been placing riders in those breakaway groups all day long, and teammate caught on the climb, but it took the pressure off the team, allowed them to just sit back. Having that rider up there, it just meant that Whitney Allison could just concentrate on this. But now you can see Omar Shapira there in that white jersey with the blue stripes of the national champion of Israel. Chloe Dygert is looking great in that yellow jersey. She looks so controlled. This is Abby Mickey. That's again just glancing down at the bike. Abby Mickey for Rally UHC.
It's really important to ride within yourself when you're on a climb of this length. If you go into the red, you can find yourself in this kind of situation where you really do blow, and there's really no coming back from it on such a significant climb. It does look like it's going to be a slight downhill now where it will give the riders a chance to really have a breather into the next steep section of this climb. You can see Krista Dobell-Hickock from the Rally UHC team now coming up in the blue jersey behind Omar Shapira in the national champs jersey of Israel in the Canyon SRAM team, who is staying firmly put on Katie Hall's wheel there in third position.
So they're just controlling this one nicely at the moment, the Rally UHC team. Chloe Dygert, again, she'll be pleased with the way this was running out, will our yellow jersey. No significant attacks at the moment. Katie Hall just having a drink. You can see keeping the bottle on the bars, just taking the gulps out of the bottle, and then making sure that she's comfortable in this one.
I'm really surprised how quickly this small group has actually formed. They look really composed and controlled, but they must be riding fast to have split this peloton so quickly. So this is super impressive riding by these climbers who are left in the group.
Brodie Chapman, it's an interesting move here by Brodie Chapman on the front, because you look at this and you think she made that little move. You can see 20 kilometers to go there. But for Brodie Chapman at the moment, she's doing exactly the right thing. She's dictating the pace. She's not. When you do that, it means that your climbers aren't just firing off attacks left, right, and centre and starting to put you into difficulty.
Yeah,
it's a really physical way to ride as well, isn't it? You're sort of showing your colours in a way, but riding within yourself.
Yeah, and she'll be riding for her teammate, I'm sure, in Lauren Stevens or even herself, and this is a really great way to take on a climb like this, to dictate the pace. Like you were saying, she can ride at her own speed, which will be a high tempo, which will actually put off riders attacking if it's already at such a rate that you're suffering. So this is really great to see by Brodie Chapman of the Tibco team, but I'm sure we will see the smaller riders, the more typical climbers, going for the attacks when it gets a lot steeper. We've seen the gradient on this climb gets up to 14%, which is super steep, but for now she's doing a fantastic job in keeping this tempo really high to put off any teams attacking at this stage of the race.
So just knocking out that tempo right behind her, Edwig Patel wearing number 32. So Edwig Patel is 52 years old. I'm sure she doesn't mind us reminding people of her age. The rider there, Krista Dobell-Hickock, wearing number 13. Omar Shapira just pedals through towards the front. Maddie Ward was the ABD Foundation rider that they showed just down the back of the group as well. So for this team as well, the Showair 2020 team, Omar Shapira now through towards the front for Canyon SRAM. If you watched the Mount Baldy stage of the Tour of California this year, you'd have seen the national champion of Israel putting a few great bursts on that one when Katie Hall won the stage, and Evander van der Breggen, who took the race overall. Now we're starting to see some attacks, and Brodie Chapman again out of the saddle here for Tibco Silicon Valley. This gives them some good options on this stage.
This looks like the first significant move on this climb. Omar Shapira had done her homework. She knew when they turned right, the severity, the gradient has gone up, and she has tried to launch it, and she's got a slight gap here now with Brodie. You can see Katie Hall bringing it back. She doesn't want to let these two riders get too much of a gap in front that she can't control here now on her own, as the only rider in this group from the USA national team.
Yeah, that's my only concern in this, in terms of the team support here for Katie Hall. She'll be very used to, again, having that team from last year UHC and now from Bull Dolmans in terms of working for her.
Yeah, Tibco are really in the best position here at this stage, and Canyon. They've still got 2 riders left behind Omar Shapira here. You could see there 5 kilometers to go to the summit. So we are getting closer to the front of this, to the top of this climb, and it can't be Katie Hall that does all the work to bring these 2 riders back. But at the moment, it is still Katie Hall on the front of the riders behind, who are just sitting back and letting her do all of the work.
And again, when you've got a star like that in this race, when riders start to go, it can almost make it very negative, because they're almost throwing the race away, waiting and watching Katie Hall. And you know, as you said, she can't do it all on her own.
No, exactly. So this is a fantastic opportunity for these 2 riders now. They've really taken the race on themselves. They haven't waited for Katie Hall to move. When she moves, she will go. So this is really impressive work, and you can see here that this group is starting to fragment from behind. It is becoming attritional, and it is becoming smaller naturally as we get into the real crux of this climb.
So these attacks, Brodie Chapman, Omar Shapira, Chloe Dygert, you're seeing the yellow jersey now comes through to the front. So just time trialing her way across this gap. You can see, as we talked about, the little climbers like Omar Shapira and also the likes of Katie Hall. They little attacks, little short, sharp moves. Chloe Dygert is just pedaling across the gap. Cool as anything.
She is. Look how composed she is with that style. Barely any upper body movement that we're seeing compared to some of the riders in this group now. She's just in her own rhythm. She's looking down. She's probably using a power meter. She knows where her limits are on a climb of this length. And this is super impressive riding from Chloe Dygert. To put time, to put a gap into the likes of Katie Hall, who we've been calling out as being the favourite for a climb like this. I'm really impressed.
Good move by her. So again, another really solid ride today from Clara Honsinger, number 141. Canyon SRAM, they've put Omar Shapira up there. They've got plenty of options in that group. Hannah Ludwig is still in there as well, wearing number 24.
I think I was actually calling her as Tiffany Cromwell, so I'm sorry about that. Hannah Ludwig, they look very similar with their blonde hair, but we did see that was Hannah Ludwig there from the Canyon SRAM team, along with Ella Harris, who are still there from Canyon SRAM. It looks like Omar Shapira is struggling to hold on to Brodie's wheel here, as Chloe Dygert is making it across to these front 2 riders.
Good move here. Brodie Chapman looks absolutely phenomenal today for Team Tibco. The Tibco Silicon Valley team led into this one. She's got her teammate Lauren Stevens in that group behind. The yellow jersey, though, is riding across this gap. And Chloe Dygert, stage victory yesterday. And again, it just shows you just taking her time. Just now into the slipstream of Omar Shapira here, but Brodie Chapman is just gapping them very slightly. Shapira just looking down at the handlebars, just trying to stay with Brodie Chapman, who set that pace from the bottom of this one. So a good significant group now, and Chloe Dygert will just take the moment in the slipstream of Omar Shapira. She'll hope that the champion of Israel from Canyon SRAM can ride her way back on. Now she comes past, recognises that for Brodie Chapman, she needs to close this one down. That gap, 5 meters, 10 meters, can just start to go. And again, a rider we know as a track rider as well. And now is mixing so well the road and the track, just jumping backwards and forwards between the 2. She's had a phenomenal season as well. And I don't think for us, we don't get to see the Tour of the Healer and the Joe Martin stage race and those sort of races that she's won. And for us, it's great to see someone like Chloe Dygert and getting to see just the versatility of her as a rider.
It is. It's absolutely incredible. I actually counted her out for today's stage, but this is fantastic riding, and this is why I love that we are seeing so much more women's racing as coverage on the TV or online like this capacity today. And what a fantastic ride she's having. She really is in her element. She can time trial, road race, and obviously her speciality is the track. So yeah, this is the rider of the stage race for me so far, for sure, but it's still a long way to go.
And Brody Chapman again just digs in at the front for Tibco Silicon Valley Bank, and she really hurt. She got led into the bottom of this climb by the teammates, and for Silicon Valley Bank, she is delivering. She's just opening up a gap again on Chloe Dygert, but Dygert is just doing the right thing. She's not reacting. She's just grinding out on this climb. As we said a little bit earlier on, that you've got your difference with explosive climbers and climbers that are real-time trialists, and the Australian Brody Chapman now putting in a real serious move. She has got, remember, 50 seconds gap to make up on Chloe Dygert, as Oma Shapira just sitting there just off the back of these two riders here as well. I think as we get towards the top of this one, we might start to see some attacks as well. Katie Hall, again, she just looked like maybe just biding her time a little bit in that group behind.
She has to do something, but I'm not sure she was. This gap looks really significant now, and she's going to have to make some attack to be able to close in. I think it's really interesting that it is Oma Shapira that's really struggling out of these three, and she was the one that made the significant move when they came around that right-hand bend, and that was an explosive attack that would have meant she's gone into the red. But these two riders that you're seeing now, Brody Chapman from the Tibco team and Chloe Dygert from Showa 2020, they're almost just time trialing their way up this climb, and especially Chloe. The difference between Brody here, who's rocking and rolling a little bit on the bike, but Chloe looks so composed. She will have a lot of strength and conditioning training within her program. That means she can really keep that upper body strong and really get all her power through her lower body without wasting energy.
Whitney Allison on the front. Dygert is just holding that gap. 20 seconds they're giving us as the gap from our leader back to that peloton behind. You can just see they're just all just setting their own tempo. There's Katie Hall, Tatiana Gudurzo, former world champion from B Pink, right behind her. A lot of focus on last year's winning. Just hear the riders just shifting through the gears. Clara Honsinger here for Lux. So in that white jersey, again, we're getting to see some riders as well for us on the other side of the world that we don't always get to see. Lauren Stevens was the other Tibco rider that was in that group, but Whitney Allison as well from Hagen's Berman. Whitney Allison, the ride she did yesterday, but she's really, really impressing me on this climb. The rider from Hagen's Berman that's setting the pace on this one. It looks like she's just starting to gap Katie Hall a little bit on this climb.
Yeah, unfortunately for Katie Hall, I don't think she's having her best day. It does look like she's struggling. There's no way she'd let a gap go when you can get a slight help from the riders in front in terms of the aerodynamic drag. You can rest a bit when you're on the wheel. Even on the climbs, it's only small, but there's no way you'd let that gap go if you weren't suffering. So that's a real surprise for me that Katie Hall's come out the back of this small group now. But these three riders are out here on the front. Oma Shapira has obviously been able to recover from that big significant move that she made around that right hand corner to pass Chloe Dygert, and she's coming up to Brody Chapman now, and I'm sure she'll try and go straight round her. This must be one of her biggest targets of the season so far this year. Beautiful
shot here of the group as they climb through the trees here, heading up to the summit of Bachelor Gulch. This is the climb, and it's giving us everything that we expected. Oma Shapira just, again, finding a part of the climb that suits her style. Brody Chapman, the Aussie that's in the lead here for Tibco Silicon Valley Bank. What a great season she's having so far. Started winning way back in January, back in some home races. Third overall in the general classification as Katie Hall just drops off the back of the group here. Third overall, Brody Chapman in the Herald Sun Tour stage win, 2 stage wins, and the GC in the Tour of the Gila. And so she comes into this one as well. A win over in the Tour de Feminin in the Czech Republic. But Katie Hall for the US national team, big expectation. The rider wearing #1 for the US national team. Again, just dropping off the back of this group, and hopefully find a way back over the summit of the climb. There's our 3 leaders, and they're just climbing. Again, looking at the way they're climbing this one, Brody Chapman's just looked back again and just opened the throttle a little bit more again over Omar Shapiro onto you can see the steep parts of the climb here. And again, on a road like this and a climb like this, as climbers, there's different parts of the climb that suit you, isn't there?
Yeah, there will be. And for a rider like Omar, this will be the perfect part of the climb, the really steep sections where she can really use her power to weight advantage over the slightly bigger riders who are using their engines to get up this climb. So the riders will go through really different feelings throughout this climb. They'll have really good parts and bad parts, and they'll go through real kind of, I guess, ups and downs along the way. So it's really a mental, a real mental challenge as well as a physical challenge climbing. A lot of people say, I hate climbing because it's super, super hard, but a lot of it is in your head, and they will need to just battle through this. They've clearly got the form. They'll have, like you say, different parts that favour them in terms of the severity of the gradient, so they need to just keep battling to the top. They're getting closer to it now with only 9.3 miles to go to the finish line.
So standout ride here at the front. This is the Avon stage of the Colorado Classic, day 2 here. Thanks for all your company today. So we're on at the Eagle River Valley, the description of this one at the Beaver Creek Resort. So elevation of 7,431 feet. So that's the host town. At maximum gradients of 14% on this one. It's Brody Chapman, Omar Shapiro, and the yellow jersey of Chloe Dargett that is battling to stay with this one. Breathtaking scenery that we have here in Colorado today for this one, and it's giving us some great racing. And Danny, again, it's when we talk about this and we're getting to see more of these races that aren't at the moment, there haven't been historically a huge amount of races in the mountains where we really got to see the talented climbers.
No, and that's why I love to see this within the women's racing, to give those riders a real opportunity to get the victories that they deserve as pure climbers. We see it a lot in the men's side with the big stage races that they've got, with the huge summit finishes, or the mountains within the races that even come down the other side and then finish. But you don't see it so much in the women's peloton, and there's a real favour to be an all-rounder in the women's peloton.
There's always one, isn't there?
Races that gets in the way. Good to see the support out there, but obviously need to respect the riders in terms of them being able to use their race line. But yeah, going back to the mountains within the women's racing, it's really great to see and gives these riders an opportunity to get the victories that they deserve.
So heading now, 14.3 kilometers to go. We're almost at the summit. 13.8 kilometers to go is the point that we hit the summit. 5 seconds back to Chloe Dargett, 20 seconds back to the chaser. So it's going to be a battle on that descent as well. Chloe Dargett really has dug deep in this one, and you can see the chase behind from this group. Whitney Allison, wearing number 85 in that orange jersey, doing a phenomenal ride today. Flavia Oliveira here, 112 from Fearless Femme. Lauren Stevens just ahead of them, and that group.
And that deer or guy with big antlers has got Hall written on the back of his shirt. So unfortunately, I'm not sure she's in the best position or the position that he potentially thought she would be in at this stage of the climb. I think it was Ella Harris from the Canyon SRAM team leading the chase behind these 3 riders, with Krista Dobell Hidcock of the team of Rally in the blue jersey behind. So these riders are really going to have to dig in deep now over the top of this climb before they make the final descent back onto the criterium circuit for the final few miles or kilometers of the race.
So we'll see if this is going to be a significant enough time gap at the top. Omar Shapiro, you can see, really having to work hard to stay with this one. But Brody Chapman, what a tempo she has set at the bottom. We said, didn't we? She's doing the right thing. She's just dictating the pace. It was a brave strategy, but at the moment it's paying off for her. As Flavia Oliveira here, just starting to get dropped on the slopes here. Whitney Allison again. They've just got to dig deep now for just a little bit longer. Get over that summit. Try and come back on the descent of this one. But this group here, for Chloe Dargett, as they always say, the best form of defence is attack, and that's what she's done here.
Exactly it. And I think Chloe Dygert and Brodie Chapman will know each other in terms of how they can descend, but they won't know much about Omar Shapira, the Israeli champion, who they're just putting a little bit of distance into now. So it'll be really interesting to see how these two riders really play out the top of this climb, if they've got the confidence within themselves to get down the descent as quickly as possible, or if they back themselves in the sprint scenario. But this is such impressive racing for Chloe Dygert. It's almost like she's gone straight past Brodie Chapman here. She's still in that consistent rhythm of her own threshold, and she thinks she can hold that all the way to the top.
Yeah, you see, she's just set that tempo all the way up the climb. Now she starts to get towards the summit. Now she's starting to think, I can do this, I can make this move. 1 kilometre to go now to the Queen of the Mountains point at the summit, the yellow jersey. She knows that she's got the advantage now, starts to make the move just to see if she can distance Brodie Chapman just behind her. Brodie Chapman has been on the go on this one right from the base of the climb. Her teammates led her into this one. Omar Shapira coming back to her. So Chloe Dygert, it's really a strong show here from the yellow jersey. And again, it's great to see a race leader, isn't it? Just going on the attack, trying to take as much time as she can, just having it all, as much time as she can in the bag, going into the stages to come.
It is. She really is proving that she can do it all. Yesterday she won solo in a real time trial style fashion. Today she's soloing it up such a significant climb, and not just any old climb. It's a 10-kilometre climb, a 6-mile climb of gradient up to 14%, which for a track rider you'd look at and absolutely grimace. I know I would have. So this is a fantastic performance from Chloe. I think we just saw her get out the saddle for the first time of this long climb, so it just shows again here, this is a really, really steep section of the climb, but she knows she's within 1 kilometre of the top. But when the climb is so steep, that is a hell of a long way. So she's just got to grit her teeth now and hope that she can hold off these two riders behind of Brodie Chapman and Omar Shapira. And we're just seeing that group of Ella Harris and Krista Dobell-Hickok coming behind them.
Lauren Stevens, the other rider with them. Ella Harris, what a ride today as well from the Canyon SRAM rider. Again, it's just great grinding out this climb. Brodie Chapman just looks like she's recovered enough. She's just got to hit 1 kilometre stop. Just keep that rider within striking distance. You know when you get over the top, a little effort and you're back on.
Yeah, and you can never panic in that situation. If you are really suffering, you've got to just keep mentally talking to yourself and encouraging yourself that there's not long to go. So if I was in this 1 kilometre to go, I'd be thinking only 4 laps of the track. I wonder if Chloe's thinking the same, but trying to reset yourself, maybe getting out the saddle to give yourself a bit of a stretch and hope that you can get all that blood back into your legs to get over the climb. They're in the final couple of minutes of effort before they hit this descent, where they're going to have to still be super focused. It looks like a technical descent on the road book to get down this safely in order to set themselves up for the finish.
And if you're looking for inspiration, number 32, Edwig Patel, 52 years old, gets back on to that chasing group behind this one, the Kogas rider from France, riding again another phenomenal climb. Brodie Chapman just knocking out the rhythm here for Tibco Silicon Valley, shifts up through the gears, gets herself back to Chloe Dygert. Omar Shapira wrestling, you can see, battling the inner demons as well as the climb and the bike up this one, the Canyon SRAM rider.
She really is, and she's going to be willing for the top of this QOM to be in sight. She looks like she's just found a little bit more gas here, but there really is nothing between these three riders, and it is going to be a case of battling down this descent. Will the riders attack on the descent if they're super confident? It's a really good opportunity to be able to put time into the others if they don't feel that they'd want to come up to them in a sprint situation. I think if you were looking at these three riders now on paper, it would be Chloe Dygert that would win the sprint. So the others are going to have to try something to get rid of her now, coming into the last 200 meters of this climb.
Brodie Chapman wants maximum Queen of the Mountains points at the top of this one. Chloe Dygert, the rider, right on her wheel, leads in the Queen of the Mountains. She's level on points with Emily Newsom. They've both got 8 points. Chapman wants it, but Chloe Dygert doesn't just want the yellow jersey, she wants the Queen of the Mountains as well. Brodie Chapman reacts, so a sprint for the summit. Brodie Chapman throws the bike and the line at the summit of this one. Oma Shapiro, you can see shifting through the gears. She's got to get onto them as quickly as she can on this descent. Both of those riders, they hurt. That hurt. You can see there significantly.
That did hurt, and you could see how much distance that small acceleration there with them battling to the line they put into Oma Shapiro. That was at least 10 to 15 seconds now that Oma Shapiro is going to have to try and make up on the descent.
I love to see that as well. Riders really fighting for maximum points in the Queen of the Mountains classification. A few of you asking if it's a technical descent from the road book. Yes, it is. A very technical descent as Edwin Patel leads Harris over the top. So Stevens and Dobell Hickok are there. Brodie Chapman just trying to find a way back up to Chloe Dygert. Patel swings off. Lauren Stevens doesn't have to do any work here. She's got her teammate up the road now. The Katie Hall group coming through.
That looks like Hannah Ludwig from the Canyon SRAM team there.
Clara Honsinger as well. And Whitney Allison just going over the top there.
That's a really interesting line from Brodie Chapman there coming into that corner. I don't know whether she was trying to dive bomb Chloe Dygert to try and get in front, but you could see that Chloe Dygert was taking a better line into the descent. She was going wide on the approach and really cutting that corner to make sure she's not having to brake and she can go down it as efficiently as possible.
So just got to try and follow the line here of Chloe Dygert on this descent. And Dygert, the winner of the stage yesterday. Can she take another one? Lauren Stevens, you can see here, just tucking down for TIBCO Silicon Valley. So there she chased. 5 seconds back to Oma Shapiro, 20 seconds back to our chasing group on the descent. Please excuse our picture breakup. Could this be? It'd be a great battle between these two riders. Brodie Chapman's had a really successful season, and the Australian rider, as the year's gone on. So Chloe Dygert just smoothly pedaling the lines, has actually absolutely got this descent nailed now. Brodie Chapman, you can't give her too much leeway here on this descent. You can have a little bit of layoff, can't you? But you don't want too much on the descent.
Yeah, I'd say this is about as maximum as you'd want. You can see the real difference in technical ability down this descent, and Chloe's definitely taking the better lines, and every time there is a corner, Brodie's just losing a few more meters around these bends. So this is looking good for Chloe, but it's whether she can sustain this gap in the last few miles or kilometers where it does flatten out towards the finish. We know Brodie can sprint, we know Chloe can sprint, so this is set to be a super exciting finale for this stage.
Brodie Chapman battling to get back up to Chloe Dygert, just 11.5 kilometers back in towards the finish. So the bottom of that descent, then these two, I think Chloe Dygert as well would welcome maybe a little bit of help from Brodie Chapman, but although looking at the way she rode in towards the finish yesterday on her own, when we went into this stage, going into this one, big respect to her. This is not the scenario that we thought. We thought she would try and defend on that climb, use that time trial ability, but really going on the offensive on this one. And you can see Brodie Chapman all the time just looking back, just looking where that group are behind, all of that effort on the climb. Dygert at the moment just opening just a few meters here and there on every one of these corners.
She is. She's just taken these corners a bit faster than Brodie Chapman behind. Brodie did such a fantastic job in taking that climb into her own hands right from the bottom. I'm not sure whether she's ridden it before, but that would really, really help. If you can do a lot of research coming into these races, and if you've ridden the climb before, you can really have that mental positivity, I guess, knowing what's to come in the race. So you can see here, she's trying to close this gap down. She's getting as aero as she can now, trying to get herself down towards the top tube to try and get Chloe back into the last few kilometres of this descent.
The motorbike just goes up to our leader. Get a view of that one. Krista Dobell-Hickok in the blue for Rally UHC. Again, on this descent, these groups will just hope that they can come back together on the flat roads on the run into Avon. Great climb.
That looks like Krista Dobell-Hickok there, just off the back of those two riders, a Canyon SRAM rider. I know when I was riding in a team with her, she wasn't a super confident descender, so that can be the problem sometimes. I know, again, I rode with the famous Mara Abbott, who was one of the best climbers in the world, an American rider, and she suffered with the descent. So if it was a summit finish, she was absolutely loving it, but her problem was then the descent, because she just didn't have that confidence to be able to go down at speeds like we're seeing Chloe Dygert here. So sometimes, unfortunately for the climbers, they have to be able to descend to still win these bike races if it does finish on the other side.
And we're getting the opportunity on this set. It's something that you don't always get to see as well. The motorbikes on the wide roads can't always follow the riders, but you're seeing Chloe Dygert sprinting out of the corners as well, the lines that she's taking on this descent again. And I think sometimes the really wide roads here kind of it doesn't kind of give you the full impact of the speed that they're actually doing, because of how wide the roads are, how, you know, the speed that Chloe Dygert is able to carry through these corners.
Definitely, she'll definitely be hitting speeds of up to 70, if not 80 kilometres an hour here. And I'd really prefer to be in the position of Chloe. She can take her own line, and she's not being forced by trying to chase a rider in front of her, which is when then you can actually make bad decisions in terms of the line you take down the descents, because you're trying to take risks to catch the rider in front rather than focusing on actually getting down as safely and as efficiently as you can, which is usually at the speed. You can see you're hitting speeds of 60 miles an hour, which is 100 kilometers an hour here on this straight section of the descent, and she'll be in her biggest gear. And you can see the speed she was pedaling there, up to probably 120 revs per minute, which is what she'll be used to on the track. So this is another advantage here for Chloe Dygert coming into the last 5 miles of the race.
Yeah, so a lot of you over on the chat forums on YouTube and Facebook asking about the speed. I was hoping that the cameraman would show you the speedometer on the motorbike. So yeah, as we said, 60 miles an hour, almost 100 kilometers an hour on this descent. Chloe Dygert, race leader, going after yesterday's stage victory, where she came in 44 seconds ahead of that chasing group. She was leading overall by 48 seconds ahead of Whitney Allison. Brodie Chapman was in third at 50 seconds. And these chasers on this descent are just, again, trying to find their way through this one, but we're getting a masterclass in descending here from Chloe Dygert, the Showair 2020 rider. What a rider she is, whether it's on the road, whether it's on the track. This is a phenomenal descent that she has put in on this one. You can just see the marshals at the side, just giving them the directions, letting them know where they're going. And we're starting now with 4.2 miles to go in towards the finish. She is back onto the flat road. 6.8 kilometers to go for the yellow jersey. And can she put more significant time into the rider? She has a glance over her shoulder just to see where Brodie Chapman is behind, back into that time trial position that we saw yesterday. And the camera now will just look back, and at the moment, Brodie Chapman not in sight. So the yellow jersey. And oh, there she is. My apologies. There's Brodie Chapman. There's Omar Shapira. Couldn't quite make them out in the haze there. Omar Shapira trying to find her way back to Brodie Chapman. And they can see the rises here. They're trying to drag back Chloe Dygert. So, again, so relaxed on the bike.
We're almost seeing a bit of deja vu from yesterday's stage. Chloe found herself in this position at about this amount of time before the finish line, just under 4 miles to go, and the two behind her need to get together now to work together and close this gap. And Chloe will either have to decide whether to try and battle on and win solo like she did yesterday, or if she looks back and feels that the gap is too small, especially when there's potentially 2 riders working together to chase her, she might then sit back take some time to recover and back herself in the sprint. But we all know that Brodie Chapman is also a great sprinter, so I think she'll try and go for it now. She knows she can time trial and hope that she can hold off the 2 riders behind who are yet to be able to collaborate and work together.
Chloe Dygert, what a career that she has had, and what a career ahead of her. Just going back 2015 World Junior Time Trial and Road Champion, then just brought into that World Championship winning Team Pursuit team in 2016 with some other big names, Sarah Hammer Kelly, Caitlin Jennifer Valenti and Ruth Winder. Stages in the Tour of California, more World Championships as well in the Pursuit and the Team Pursuit. So what a career. And then into this season where she really has just taken a massive step up again. As we said a little bit earlier on, the Joe Martin stage race, the Tour of the Healer, the Krona Kristen Armstrong. And coming into this one, she's trying to put as much time as she can into the riders behind. But again, she's just glancing back. She's just seeing how much gap she's got over those 2 riders behind her. It's 10 seconds on the graphic at the top, 20 seconds they're saying to the peloton. That's the next group behind that. We haven't really got a peloton now, have we?
No,
after that
definitely not. I think it was about 4 riders that we saw, with the likes of Christelle Dobell Hidcock, the Canyon SRAM rider, Hannah Ludwig, and Brodie Chapman and Oma Shapira are still not together. So it really is a time trial situation now on the road, that they are battling together on this flat section now into the running of the finish. And now we're seeing the group of Katie Hall come onto the flat part, and they really are going to have to work together now in almost a team time trial formation to try and limit their losses and get back to the front riders of the race.
Brodie Chapman, you can see hands on the hoods, folded over there. The gap, you can see Chase 1 now has been adapted to 20 seconds. The peloton, they're still showing us at 20 seconds as well. And so we're just working out the gaps here as well. You can see they take these off the bikes, but Brodie Chapman, the gap now being shown at 20 seconds. They haven't adjusted the one for the peloton behind, but the Aussie here for Tibco Silicon Valley. What a climb that she put in, the lead in by her teammates, looking to try and move herself up to 2nd overall in this one. She went into the stage in 3rd, but Chloe Dygert 3 kilometers now in towards the finish. Hands on the drops, just time trialing her way in towards the finish.
3 kilometers to go for Chloe Dygert. That is her perfect race distance. She knows how to ride 3 kilometers, that's for sure. We saw such an impressive performance of her with the individual pursuit a couple of years ago at the World Championships, where she was just so dominant. She had a bit of time out with injury, and it's really great to see her back at her best, if not better, form now in this stage race on the road.
Interesting, she's running the double computer on the bike here. She's got one on her one on her stem and one on the front of the bars.
I used to do that,
Did you?
That was because I had power on one, and my power meter that I had with the sponsored team didn't show me GPS. And what I used to do was, on a descent like we just saw Chloe go down there, I'd use the maps to be able to see the severity of the corners, so I knew how much I needed to scrub off or not with the mapping system. So I'd be interested to know why she's got that on her bike, but that was something that I used to do, and that was the reason why, with Chloe now coming into 2 kilometers to go.
2K to go for Chloe Dygert, extending her lead here in the Colorado Classic, looking to try and put this race out of sight of any challengers behind. Hands on the drops, digging deep here. 2 kilometers, she can see Avon in the distance, running in towards the finish. What a ride she has put in defense of this yellow jersey, going on the attack on that climb to chase down Oma Shapira and Brodie Chapman. Ride of the day though as well, you've got to say, from Brodie Chapman on that climb, through everything that she could at Chloe Dygert, just not able to hold her on the descent. But again, looking to try and put significant time into those chasers behind.
A really impressive ride here. I think Chloe Dygert's going to be able to get herself another stage victory and extend her lead in the yellow jersey. But Brodie Chapman had an incredible ride up that climb, really taking it into her own hands and setting the pace. And Oma Shapira is really battling now. She's getting her hands, her arms onto the bars to get herself as low and in a time trial position as possible to try and catch Brodie Chapman in front of her.
Oma Shapiro, she's got one of those real gutsy styles. I think she's just shows all her emotion in the effort. 1 kilometre to go now. What a ride today from Chloe Dygert. Again, the stage winner yesterday went into the stage, the big mountain. We were all expecting the fireworks to come from the pure climbers. It was the move by Brodie Chapman, followed by Oma Shapiro, and then Chloe Dygert just riding away, setting a tempo, staying calm and riding up towards the summit. And then that beautiful descent. What a move that she made, and now taking these final few corners in towards the finish.
She really has ridden the perfect race. You didn't see her up until the very last lap of the 7 laps of the criterium, where she just moved herself up after she'd just been biding her time and trying to hold herself back for what she knew would be the significant climb of the day. And she's been able to climb with the best. Brodie Chapman, who led the climb out right from the bottom, and she's been able to drop her on the descent and really power her way all the way solo to the finish again to take stage 2.
So the Show Air 2020 rider, we shift to these front camera positions. What a race we've had. 7 laps of that city street circuit. Now she lines up for the finish. What a ride. Big respect to Chloe Dygert up towards the finish. 2 days, 2 victories, and today she celebrates.
She did. She did. I thought she would have taken 2 hands off the bars at least. But she must be absolutely gassed from that effort, and what a ride.
Brodie Chapman, final corner for her for Tibco Silicon Valley. And now a good move, so on that descent, she'll be thinking about that one in terms of going over the summit. She comes in to take second. Oma Shapiro battling here for Canyon SRAM. She crosses the line in third. She will be satisfied with that one, I think. Moving herself up in the general classification.
So chilled, Chloe.
Here's now our chasing group coming in towards the finish, our next riders. So Harris, Stevens and Patel, this should be, coming in towards the finish. Or Dobell Hickok, my apologies, the riders coming in. So Harris for Canyon SRAM, Dobell Hickok coming in there as well. But again, just able to do the interview straight after an effort like that. Next group coming in, so Stevens, Hall, Oliveira and Honsinger. These are the next 4 riders to come in. So Lauren Stevens sprinting it out here for Tibco Silicon Valley Bank. She comes in next. Again, got to put maximum efforts in there as well. Another good ride by Clara Honsinger. There's Brodie Chapman, the Aussie.
Great ride by Brodie Chapman. That was a fantastic race. I absolutely loved it. You don't see it very often that you've got a criterium and then a 10-mile or 6-kilometre mountain to finish off the race.
Yeah, definitely. Got to big thanks to all of you as well on Facebook comments and also on our GCN Racing on the YouTube as well. Thank you for watching. It's been brilliant. Again, I must say, loving all your comments. As I said yesterday, we built such a great community on the chat on Facebook last year on the cyclocross, all the live cyclocross, and again, occasionally, unfortunately, we get a few comments in there. But you're starting to self-police and manage the comment section. I think we're getting some great chat and some great discussion going amongst yourselves. So hats off to you as well on there. Chloe Dygert Owen from Indiana, 22 years old, Olympic medalist, 5 times world champ, 7 times world champion, 5 UCI track world championship titles on the road to Tokyo 2020. She certainly is, isn't she?
I think we'll be seeing her on the track in 2020, but maybe 2024 she'll turn herself onto the road because she can surely do it all.
I was going to say that. I mean, looking at the Tokyo course next year, the way she's riding here as well, you've got to look. You know, you made the shift from track to road. You know, she definitely could, you would say, looking at the way she's riding here, and as we get more and more races in the high mountains, she could definitely make that shift.
Yeah, I think she'd have to come to Europe first. I think it's a very different peloton and style of racing, but that was such an impressive ride by Chloe Dygert to be able to put so much time into the likes of Katie Hall, who was up there in the final GC of the Giro Rosa, which was, you know, one of the biggest stage races for women on the world stage. That just says to me that Chloe Dygert would be able to hold her own in the European peloton.
Next group sprinting it out in towards the finish. So a little bit of chat again. It's a welcome moment, isn't it, when you cross the line with the Soigneur, getting yourself a cold drink after an effort like that.
It is, and especially in such hot conditions as well.
Little question from Scott H: Has Edwig Patel, a 52-year-old French woman, finished racing? Yes, she was in that chasing group behind. Super
impressive.
So riders here basically in ones and twos. Do you think there might be? I think our time limit on this one, I think it was 10% in terms of the time limit today. Do you think anyone might be struggling with that one?
I think that should be okay, a 10% limit. I'm not sure if Christelle Riffel got back on. We saw her puncture in the criterium laps. That would have been really, really hard. So for those riders, potentially, they wouldn't have made the 10% time limit. But I think everyone who started off in that main peloton at the bottom of the climb will be able to safely get round within the time limit.
There's your top three. Chloe Dygert, Owen from Brodie Chapman and Omar Shapira. So Canyon, SRAM, Tibco Silicon Valley and Shoair 2020. Those are your top three on the stage. We'll hopefully get our general classification and the way that's sitting going into tomorrow's stage, which is 102.5 kilometers in Golden. Back with us. What a day, you got to say. And Chloe Dygert, we talk about going into that one, as we said a little bit at the end there, as a time trial climber, which are very different to your Katie Halls, but that was a phenomenal ride on that climb.
That was so impressive. She went into the bottom of the climb. She just rode at her own pace, and that was enough to be able to match Brodie Chapman, who again took it on at her own pace as well. And the three of them rode such a significant pace all the way to the top, and then she showed that her descending skills were just one up on Brodie Chapman there, and then with her power of being able to time trial, when she found herself solo at the finish, it meant she could stay away and take another stage win of this race.
When we look at that descent, and we talk about Julien Alaphilippe and Fabien Cancellara before that, 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour on that descent, and we'll try, if we can, we'll try and cut that one and that descent and put it out there, because again, it was just a masterclass in showing you how relaxed you have to be a good descender, don't you? Because she was so fluid. The movements through those corners was just something to see.
It was amazing, and you could see the real difference in technique of Chloe Dygert and Brodie Chapman, who was just taking those corners a little bit more sharply, and it meant she was losing time on Chloe, who was taking a wider line and able to sustain more speed through the corners and hitting speeds of up to 100 kilometers an hour, even if the roads are wide and they're long and straight. That is so fast, and when you're only in Lycra, you don't want to be coming off at speeds like that, that's for sure.
No, and again, I think sometimes on that descent, and I was just hoping because our cameramen, they generally will take, when they're on a fast descent like that, because a lot of them are basically, a lot of them are former riders as well, so they know the speed, and they know that, you out there, the viewers, you want to know what speed they're doing, and I was hoping they were just going to tilt that camera down and show us that on that one, but it was phenomenal. And again, we don't always see it, do we? When you get that yellow jersey, sometimes there is that sort of way that a rider will then sit back and ride a little bit more negatively and just sit and watch and try and defend. But, not for Chloe today. On the attack, extend that lead. And what you're trying to do there, isn't it, is put it out of reach.
Yeah, and she really has, and she's just proven to the whole peloton and the world that she can do it all, that she's such a versatile rider. And going back to that descent, she was in the perfect position there. She didn't have to follow anyone and take any risks. She could ride at her own pace, her own speed, which was very fast, I must say. to be able to be attacking and again take even more time out of her rivals. So it's looking good for another stage win for her.
That sort of technique, is that something that, you know, looking at the way Brodie Chapman descended as well, you know, going away and working on that, is that something, you know, you as a coach as well and as a former pro rider, is that something that you can learn, you know, for anyone out there watching this interest, or is that looking at that sense, that pure instinct?
No, you can definitely learn. I rode in a team with Mariana Vos last year on the team of Wow Deals, and we actually had a training camp where we had a professional descender come in and take us through a descending workshop. So it definitely can be learned, and it's so important. We see it time and time again where we have these super climbers, but actually the race finishes at the bottom of the descent. So it's so important to be able to not just climb but descend as well.
Yeah. Definitely. We don't get too many summit finishes, do we? So that's all for stage 2. What a stage, as we said. Thanks to all your chat and input on Facebook and on YouTube here on GCN Racing. Unfortunately, Danny's not with us this week, and I'm going to be joined by Hannah Walker tomorrow. But I'm sure you'll all thank me, especially for your masterclass and your chat, where I really threw you under the bus last night for an hour. But I'm sure you'll all thank Danny for all her input, and she will be back again very soon, won't you?
I hope so. Thanks for all your comments. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, so join us again tomorrow. Danny Rowe and me, Martin McDonald. Bye for now.